Chapter 2195. The moment Luo Huang appeared, his strong aura and vast accumulations as a three-veined sovereign emperor shocked everyone. When the two sovereign emperors charged over, no one dared to block them. Luo Huang instantly inflicted severe injuries on some of the slower sovereign emperors, sending them flying back. Their survival was unknown. The strongest sovereign emperor present was only a two-veined sovereign emperor. As for Luo Huang, he had been a three-veined sovereign emperor for many years. Of the 9 divine veins, every 3 was a threshold. If one could cross it, it would be a whole new world. If one could not, one would be stuck. While divine vein realm sovereign emperors were said to have 9 grades, in reality there were only 3. Within 3 divine veins, one would be considered a small perfection sovereign emperor. After 3 divine veins, one would be considered a great perfection sovereign emperor. After 6 divine veins, one would be considered a consummation late-stage sovereign emperor. Luo Huang's 3-vein cultivation could be said to be at peak small perfection. He had been stuck at this bottleneck for many years. Unless a great perfection sovereign emperor appeared, no one would be a match for him in a one-on-one fight. Although there were many sovereign emperors present, most of them fought for themselves, like a plate of loose sand. Shocked by Xiao Chen's aura, how could they dare to stop him? Luo Huang only had one target, which was Li Yun, who had the dynasty's saint weapon on his head. His goal was even simpler: to kill him and seize the ancient demonic monarch's true god flame. But it wasn't easy to make it a reality. After all, Li Yun had used his own strength to block the terrifying attacks of 10-odd sovereign emperors earlier. The strength of a sage artifact was evident. When he saw Luo Huang appear, a trace of undetectable panic flashed across Li Yun's arrogant eyes. He wasn't sure if the sage artifact could stop Luo Huang, who was at the peak of 3 meridians. His fate would be even more miserable. It was hard to say whether he could even withstand 3 moves from Luo Huang. Insignificant prince, how dare you behave atrociously in my Azura underworld? Quickly scram. Otherwise, don't blame this king for not giving the Xiaowu dynasty face. Luo Huang's handsome face was overflowing with domineering aura. His eyes were filled with shocking killing intent. The accumulations of a king's might unintentionally spread out, causing Li Yun to feel immense pressure and even waver. However, when Xiao Chen thought about it, he remembered that he had Yen Songming's help in secret. It was not impossible for him to fight. Furthermore, the demonic king's fire of the true god was his only chance to make a comeback. He could not give it up. Having made up his mind, Li Yun's heart no longer wavered. He bellowed, "Today, even if the king of hell from the 9th level of the underworld comes, don't dream of making me retreat. Luo Huang, since you dared to show yourself, then I shall have a taste of your Azura tactics. Under the blood moon, only I am supreme." Li Yun shouted and pushed the might of the sage tool to its limits. The scarlet moon above his head looked like a blood moon hanging high in the sky. The image of a dynasty quickly materialized on the back of the moon wheel. Rumble. The foundation of the ancient dynasty was activated by Li Yun at this moment. A shocking demonic might erupted from his body, as though he had grown tens of thousands of feet tall. Woo! Screams of agony echoed in the air. The savage beasts that Luo Huang and the other 2 were riding on suddenly died. Luo Huang's indomitable aura was actually forcefully forced back. Their auras clashed, and this part of the world began to tremble. Woo 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 woo. The countless ancient war souls that had settled in the final blood battlefield for 10,000 years seemed to be startled awake. True cries came from the depths of the ground. There were even war drums that transcended time and space, sounding like thunder, ringing out endlessly. This made one's bloodline swell, and their battle hunger and souls burned. "I'll deal with this fellow. The 2 of you, go to the demonic sovereign's corpse." Luo Huang instructed, getting his 2 sovereign emperor subordinates to stop Li Yun's subordinates from attacking the ancient demonic sovereign's corpse. "You want to get past me? Forget about it. Lonesome Moon lives alone." When Li Yun saw the situation, he immediately attacked, wanting to block the 2 sovereign emperors. Boom! The moon will sent out a scarlet light, encasing the 2. Then, Li Yun threw 2 palm strikes. The thousands of scarlet shadows in his palms immediately turned into layers of crescents, charging at the 2 Azura sovereign emperors. The crescents were like blood. As they spun, light and shadow changed. Scarlet light flickered endlessly within 5,000 kilometers. Earlier, these thousands of crescent moons blocked the many sovereign emperors, making them flustered and fatigued from dealing with them. Every crescent looked like a true blood moon, containing the vast might of a dynasty. With the support of the scarlet light, Li Yun's Dao domain reached peak third layer, appearing startlingly mighty. Luo Huang snorted coldly, and a slender saber appeared in his hand. As the saber light moved, a force that could uproot mountains and rivers erupted from Luo Huang's body. With his strong three-vein sovereign emperor cultivation, he forcefully broke these two terrifying palm strikes. The two Azura sovereign emperors quickly took advantage of this opportunity to get under the ancient divine emperor. Elder Tang and the others felt shocked. They had no choice but to stop what they were doing and fight these two Azura sovereign emperors. Damn it! Luo Huang, you spoiled my plans. I'll fight it out with you. Sensing Luo Huang's strength, a crazed look flashed in Li Yun's eyes. His figure flashed, and he actually took the initiative to attack Luo Huang. Luo Huang's expression did not change as he dealt with Li Yun calmly. It would not be easy to deal with this crazed Li Yun, who wielded a sacred tool. The two of them quickly clashed, and a terrifying shockwave rippled out continuously. The other spectating sovereign emperors immediately moved back. Of these two, one was a three-vein sovereign emperor, and the other was a madman wielding a dynasty's sacred tool. Neither was easy to deal with. No one dared to interfere in the huge battle. The scattered shockwaves were not easy to deal with. Xiao Chen's expression changed slightly. He was already certain that aside from the experts of the Rakshasa race and the Yiksha race, there were definitely righteous Dao cultivators among the loose cultivators in disguise. When those loose cultivators retreated earlier, Xiao Chen had sensed a familiar aura. However, he could not recall where it was. Let's go. Not daring to take the risk, Xiao Chen led Luo Huyan far away. The Rakshasa race and the Yiksha race still harbored the thought of Luo Huang and Li Yun injuring each other and taking advantage of the situation. Hence, they did not retreat far. Xiao Chen felt that something was wrong. He did not want to target that ancient demonic sovereign, either. So he led Luo Huyan far away, continuously retreating. Senior, I want to see my father. I don't want to leave. Luo Huyan was worried about his father's safety, so he resisted somewhat. However, Xiao Chen could not be bothered to explain, forcefully pulling him far away. They kept retreating until they were 500,000 kilometers away. Even then, they could still hear the earth-shaking sounds of battle. Little Prince, stop messing around. Mr. Xiao is doing this for Little Prince's safety. Luo Huyan only stopped after retreating 100,000 kilometers. The group of sovereign personage guards quickly consoled Luo Huyan, who had been making a fuss along the way. Luo Huyan's eyes turned somewhat moist. I don't care. I want to see my father. I don't want anything to happen to him. I want to go back. As Luo Huyan spoke, he actually started crying. The group of sovereign personage guards could not do anything, feeling somewhat flustered. Xiao Chen could no longer stand by and watch. He ferociously stretched out his hand and flung Luo Huyan off the savage beast's back, causing Luo Huyan to fall heavily to the ground. You are a man. What is the point of crying? If you go back, you will die. If you want to die, I will kill you now. Xiao Chen snorted coldly and released his killing intent, scaring the group of sovereign personage guards. Luo Huyan also panicked. Mr. Xiao, don't be angry. Little Prince lost his mother when he was young. He grew up with King Luoho and had a deep relationship with him. It is hard to avoid some. The group of sovereign personage guards quickly explained, thinking that Xiao Chen really wanted to kill. Xiao Chen sighed when he heard that. Then he said softly, since your father handed me to you, I have to take responsibility for you. The demonic sovereign corpse land is much more complicated than you imagine. You are just a star venerate. Going there is simply seeking death. In the end, Luo Huyan was not a fool. After being scared by Xiao Chen, he recovered his wits. However, he asked, Senior, will my father be fine? Xiao Chen did not feel confident. If he really had confidence in Luo Huang, he would not have retreated so far away. Xiao Chen had made such a decision because he felt that something was wrong. That should be the case. Luo Huang is a three-veined sovereign emperor. It should not be difficult for him to survive. That was all Xiao Chen could say. Right after he spoke, he suddenly felt the dynasty's accumulations in the distant Scarlet Moon weaken for a moment. This is? Not caring much, Xiao Chen opened a vertical eye on his forehead under the conical bamboo hat, activating his heavenly eye. Xiao Chen's vision continuously expanded. Finally, the scene of the demonic sovereign corpse land appeared before him. Cracks appeared in the Scarlet Moon above Li Yun's head. The dynasty's sacred tool seemed to be on the verge of breaking. Xiao Chen immediately rejoiced. Something must have happened when Li Yun forcefully broke the demonic might. Otherwise, the dynasty's sacred tool would not have lasted until now. Li Yun's crazed expression instantly paled in fright. He cursed as though he was trying to say who betrayed him. Seeing that he could not defeat Luo Huang, and that the sacred tool could not hold on any longer, Li Yun merged the sacred tool into his body and retreated quickly. Luo Huang snorted coldly. Then he wanted to pursue and kill Li Yun in one go. However, just at this moment, something strange happened. Xiao Chen's heavenly eye suddenly felt a piercing light, and a trace of blood appeared. Xiao Chen gritted his teeth and grunted. Then he quickly closed his heavenly eye, showing an uncertain expression. The instant the intense light appeared, Xiao Chen saw the person who attacked. It was the profound heaven's holy son, Wenrinyu. Mu Yunju and Gu Yuhan, who had conflicts with Xiao Chen in the faux god world, stood beside Wenrinyu. When the three worked together, they seemed to activate some kind of secret treasure, instantly erupting with a Dao might that surpassed that of the dynasty's sacred tool. No one had expected such a scene to unfold. Although Luo Huang had been wary of others attacking in secret, he relaxed his guard when he saw Li Yun's defeat. Furthermore, he had not expected such a strong attack. Although Xiao Chen did not see what happened later, he could guess what happened. After Luo Huang suffered such an attack, he was surrounded by 10 odd sovereign emperors. His situation was definitely not good. Chapter 2196. A piercing light lit up the entire final blood battlefield like the blazing sun. Even from 1,000,000 kilometers away, one could see the intense light and dazzling eyes. The light was too dazzling, blinding people temporarily. Aside from the intense light, they could not see anything else. When the intense light faded, Luo Huyan exclaimed in shock. Light Dao domain. It's a righteous Dao cultivator. Why would righteous Dao cultivators appear in the final blood battlefield? Are these people tired of living? After the group of sovereign personage guards startled to their senses, they showed worry on their faces, clearly feeling ill at ease. How can it be like this? Did Luo Huang think of it? What a terrifying light Dao domain. It is even stronger than the 8th Prince's sacred tool. Although the light only appeared for a short while, not as long as the sacred tool's might, the might it erupted with was much stronger than the sacred tools. Luo Huyan and the other Azura race cultivators could not help feeling nervous. Anyone would worry about Luo Huang's safety under such circumstances. Xiao Chen's expression had already recovered its calm. Before he came, he had heard rumors of righteous Dao cultivators in the final blood battlefield. However, these people hid very well, mixing in with the demonic Dao loose cultivators and deceiving them. The demonic Dao loose cultivators were humans, and so were the righteous Dao cultivators. As long as they hid their auras, others would not notice them if they did not. Furthermore, the baleful auras in the final blood battlefield were chaotic, easily disrupting the perception of cultivators. Let's go. This place is no longer safe, Xiao Chen said softly. Luo Huyan and the others had not seen it, but Xiao Chen had personally seen Luo Huang get struck. Xiao Chen did not know what the situation was now, but he was certain that Luo Huang could no longer control the situation. No. I want to go and find father. I'm not leaving. Something must have happened to father. I want to go and save him. Luo Huyan showed a flustered expression, his eyes bloodshot. Perhaps it was because of the father-son connection, but he felt that Luo Huang's current situation was terrible. Speaking of which, Luo Huyan had been rather miserable. Before coming here, he had not known anything. He had really thought that his father had brought him here to broaden his horizons. He had not expected such a cruel thing to happen. Xiao Chen frowned slightly. Emotionally, he could understand Luo Hoyun. However, rationally, he had to leave. Ah. Luo Hoyun tried to flee. However, he was trapped in Xiao Chen's Taiji force field, unable to move an inch. His demonic essence surged all over his body as he howled, but he still could not move. Damn it. Let go of me. Let go of me. Luo Hoyun shouted angrily, cursing Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen could not be bothered with him. He calmly ordered, capture him. Let's go. The group of sovereign personage guards knew that Xiao Chen's actions were correct. Although they felt dissatisfied with Xiao Chen, they still did as he said. However, Luo Hoyun suddenly became stubborn. He said, let go. If any of you dare to touch me, I will die in front of you. Little prince, don't be stubborn. Listen to Mr. Xiao and let's go. That's right. With the king's strength, there's no need to worry about self-preservation. At that time, if he comes out and sees that something has happened to you, little prince, then it will be troublesome. Luo Hoyun refused to obey no matter what. He kept nagging that something must have happened to his father. Something must have happened. Xiao Chen sighed softly. Let him be. We will wait here for King Luoho. Xiao Chen understood Luo Hoyun. After a 20-odd-year-old child erupted with emotions, he would inevitably lose his rationality. If Xiao Chen forcefully brought Luo Hoyun away, something bad might happen. Since that is the case, so be it. Xiao Chen felt helpless in his heart. King Luoho really gave him a tough job. Xiao Chen could not be bothered with anything else. Then, he closed his eyes and cultivated peacefully on the demon blood vulture's back. Xiao Chen only spread out the Taiji force field. No matter how hard Luo Hoyun tried, he could not struggle free. If Luo Hoyun grew tired, he would naturally stop. 2 hours later, Xiao Chen suddenly opened his eyes. He saw a horrifying demonic might surging towards him from the fog-covered battlefield. However, if one carefully sensed it, one would discover that this aura was already a spent force. Luo Hoyun held on to his last breath and rushed forward. Indeed, when Xiao Chen could sense it with his spiritual sense, he discovered that this aura came from Luo Huang. Luo Huang rushed over with all his might. A group of sovereign emperors chased after him. The surprising thing was that the profound heaven's holy son, Mu Yunju, and Gu Yuhan were among this group of people. These demonic Dao cultivators, abyssal underworld sovereign emperors, and righteous Dao cultivators actually worked together to chase after Luo Huang. On the demon blood vulture's back, Xiao Chen entered deep thought. Luo Huang forcefully obtained the true god flame? After thinking about it, this was the only possibility that could make the various factions put down their differences and work together to deal with Luo Huang. Boom! A strong wind blew, scattering the demonic fog for 5,000 kilometers around. Then Luo Huang's figure appeared before Xiao Chen and the others. Wounds covered Luo Huang's body. The huge wound on his chest, which still gave off a profound white light, was the most ghastly sight. Along the way, Luo Huang forcefully carved out a bloody path. From a distance, it looked like a scarlet river spanning 5,000 kilometers. Father. The somewhat distracted Luo Hoyun erupted, tears flowing down his cheeks. Xiao Chen scattered the Taiji force field, and Luo Hoyun struggled free. Then he started running frantically. Protect Luo Huang. The group of sovereign personage guards could no longer hold themselves back. They all rushed out to block the group of sovereign emperors. When Luo Huang saw Luo Hoyun, he squeezed out a smile on his handsome face. Then he leaped into the air and arrived before Luo Hoyun. Puh! However, the instant Luo Huang landed, he fell to the ground with a plop. Then he vomited 3 mouthfuls of blood and coughed endlessly. Miserable shrieks rang out. The sovereign personage guards could not resist these sovereign emperors, instantly dying miserably. However, this group of sovereign personage guards was very ruthless. Before dying, they chose to self-detonate, making things difficult for the sovereign emperors. Whoosh! The demon blood vulture turned into a beam of scarlet light, and arrived beside Luo Hoyun and Luo Huang. Luo Huang could no longer speak. Luo Huang tightly held Luo Hoyun's hand with one hand and tightly clenched the other, showing no signs of letting go. Yin. Luo Yin looked at Xiaochen. His eyes were red from crying as he said, "Senior, can you save my father? I beg you. I beg you." Xiaochen said in frustration. How could a bona fide three-veined sovereign emperor die so easily? If Xiaochen handed over the true god flame, would these people dare to kill him, Luo Wang? The Luo clan also had older generation faux god experts. They were just children, yet they made it seem like they were parting forever. This made Xiaochen feel a little sour. While Luo Yin spoke, Luo Wang already appeared weak. He did his best to raise his head and look at Xiaochen. There was no need for words. Xiaochen could tell what Luo Wang wanted to say from Luo Wang's eyes. Luo Wang wanted Xiaochen to protect Luo Yin and let him inherit the true god's inheritance. Xiaochen did not say anything. It was not that he was indifferent. It was just that he was a Heavenly Alliance member. Right now, he only needed to take away the Heavenly Alliance holy relic. There was no need for Xiaochen to cause other trouble and take the risk of becoming enemies with so many sovereign emperors. Luo Wang could not say anything. However, heavy sorrow appeared in his eyes. Now, it seemed like his life force was starting to fade. If one's heart died, even if one's body was fine, one would be no different from a dead person. Luo Wang's final look touched the softest and weakest thing in Xiaochen's heart. Xiaochen thought of the faux god world. He thought of facing Lu Ruyue for 5 years in Fiend Cloud Hall, suffering unspeakable pain. Xiaochen thought of the days when his heart broke out like a living dead. The demonic fog lingered in the ancient final blood battlefield. Strong winds blew endlessly, dark clouds lingered, and a blood moon hung high. The souls of the deceased seemed to sing a sad song of the past in the howling wind. Coldly watching the story of the day, the sad song remained forever. The battlefield never changed. The story was still the same. However, the heroes changed wave after wave. Sooner or later, we will all become heroes, legends, and later generations will recite our stories. Luo Wang, are you a sentimental person as well? In that case, I Xiaochen will help you this once. Xiaochen nodded silently under the conical bamboo hat. When Luo Wang saw Xiaochen nod, he put down the bamboo hat and closed his eyes. Luo Wang released his tightly clenched left hand, and the black flame immediately struggled free. Then it slowly rose and hovered in the air. A dark demonic sovereign was always accompanied by fear. However, this black flame before Luo Wang was dazzling, looking as pure as a star or gem. It actually looked somewhat holy. The 10-odd sovereign emperors behind immediately went crazy. However, not all the sovereign personage guards had died yet, still self-detonating. Even if they wanted to go forward, they did not dare to act rashly. Only Luo Yin hugged Luo Wang, crying his heart out. This silly fellow did not even know what agreement his father made with Xiaochen. If the White Dragon King were here, he would definitely rejoice that he had a daughter. Giving birth to such a silly son was truly frustrating. Don't cry. Your father is not dead. Xiaochen leaped down and grabbed the true god flame with one hand. Then he used his other hand to carry Luo Yin and Luo Wang onto the demon blood vulture's back. When Luo Yin heard Xiaochen's words, he did not get angry at all. Instead he exclaimed, "Senior, my father is fine?" Xiaochen explained. Then he cut to the chase. "Your father's injuries are just too severe. His body automatically entered a protective state, and he chose to forcibly sleep. When he recovers, he will naturally wake up. Don't say anything or ask too many questions. Take off the crown." Without sufficient intelligence, communication was difficult. Luo Yin did not dare to say anything more. When he heard that his father was fine, he relaxed and did as Xiaochen said, taking off the crown. Xiaochen received the crown and glanced at the dying sovereign personage guards. Then he said calmly, "Let's go. Don't be foolish enough to jump down. You and your father will be fine." Luo Yin startled awake. "Senior, what about you? Come with us. I'll bring you to the Luo royal residence." There was nothing wrong with having good intentions. However, being brainless was not right. Xiaochen felt helpless. "If I go with you, can you still leave?" Xiaochen could not be bothered to explain. He opened his left hand and looked at the ancient demonic sovereign's true god flame. Then, He made a move and forcefully separated the inheritance flame from the divine nature flame. Then he gently tapped the ancient demonic sovereign's inheritance flame and entered Luo Ho Yun's forehead. Before Luo Ho Yun could let out a startled cry, the demon blood vulture turned into a flash of scarlet flame and soared into the sky. Xiao Chen did not care for the ancient demonic sovereign's inheritance. However, the divine nature it contained was a great supplement to Xiao Chen. After giving Luo Ho Yun the inheritance and leaving behind this divine nature flame, Xiao Chen fulfilled Luo Ho Wang's promise. Boom! Suddenly, a strong wind blew, accompanied by an overwhelming aura. It kicked up sand and nearly blew Xiao Chen into the air. Without needing to look, Xiao Chen knew that the group of sovereign personage cannon fodder should be all dead. The 10-odd sovereign emperors no longer held back, directly charging over. Xiao Chen did not say anything. He only removed the 7-color stone from the crown, revealing the complete shape of a dart head. Then he replaced it with his snow god whip. Back then, Hua Tianyang had shaken the world with the snow god whip, gaining fame and turning the Heavenly Alliance into a super faction. Now, the snow god whip was complete again. Even without a secret technique, as long as he could bring out 10% of its might, he would not fear this group of small fries. The many sovereign emperors looked at Xiao Chen, not acting rashly. Everyone had more or less heard of a mysterious demonic cultivator, with a mysterious identity and strange whip techniques. However, they did not expect him to be with the Azura King. The Xiaowu dynasty's 8th prince leaped out and shouted, "No matter who you are, hand over the true god flame, and I'll spare you from death." 8th prince, it looks like your eyes are not completely healed. You can't even recognize me. Xiao Chen smiled faintly and casually tossed off the conical bamboo hat on his head. Then his black clothes exploded, revealing his white robes and long hair fluttering in the wind. "It's you. It's Xiao Chen. Lord Fengsun, he is Xiao Chen, the Xiao Chen who killed Rakshasa Tian's clone back then." When the 8th prince clearly saw Xiao Chen's appearance, he was so shocked that his jaw nearly fell off, completely stunned. The profound heaven's holy son Mu Yunju and Gu Yuhan were equally shocked. The shock in their hearts was indescribable. Those Rakshasa cultivators also recognized Xiao Chen. This was the dragon race cultivator that Rakshasa Tian wanted dead. Kill him. The group of Rakshasa cultivators could no longer suppress the murderous intent in their hearts. They roared, and 10-odd sovereign emperors charged at Xiao Chen at the same time. Xiao Chen snorted coldly in his heart. Then he said, "All of you withdraw for this Xiao." Xiao Chen grasped the snow god whip with his right hand and gently swung it. Immediately, the scarlet whip, which looked like plum blossoms, gave off a startling crack in the air. Pa! The talisman scripts in the whip came to life. The instant the crack rang out, the 7-colored dart head gave off a magnificent light. Suddenly, pear blossoms filled the land. That crack of thunder caused snowflakes to fill the sky, covering the vast land. The 10-odd sovereign emperors felt their souls tremble as they vomited a mouthful of blood. At the same time, the crack of thunder knocked them back. Chapter 2197. What whip is this? The group of people were scared out of their wits. Just a single thunderbolt had shaken them all away and even wounded their souls. Boundless white snow covered the ground, making the final blood battlefield look like a world of ice and snow. White covered the entire world. The baleful aura and resentment that lingered on the battlefield seemed to be covered up for now, vanishing without a trace. The might of the snow god whip startled the group of sovereign emperors. Xiao Chen was similarly shocked. However, after this strike, he felt like some of his soul was sucked out. The soul energy in his divine seal drained a lot. It looks like I forced myself to use this snow god whip. I wonder how long my soul energy can last. However, it should be enough to deal with these people. Humph. Let's see what you are up to. The 8th Prince Li Yun roared, unwilling to submit. Then he brought out the Scarlet Moon and charged at Xiao Chen again. Elder Tang, who was beside Li Yun, also charged over, trying to use the Xiaowu dynasty's sacred tool to suppress Xiao Chen. No matter the price, I have to kill him today. Shock flashed in the profound Heaven Holy Sun's eyes. Back in Peach Blossom City, he had not truly cared about Xiao Chen. However, now that Xiaochen showed such elegance, the profound Heaven Holy Sun sensed danger. If Xiaochen obtained the true God flame, it would be terrible. As the profound Heaven Holy Sun spoke, he gritted his teeth. Then, an astrolabe appeared in his hand, and he swung it at the sky. As the astrolabe spun, it turned into a vast star chart that covered the entire sky. Stars flickered, and a river of stars surged. Covered in starlight, Wenrinyu charged over again in a flash. Xiaochen raised his eyebrows. When he saw that astrolabe, he recalled some matters. He could not help saying, "Wenrinyu, it turns out that you were the one who came to steal my ethereal immortal palace key in the Heavenly Fragrance's residence." The mystery was finally revealed. Xiaochen could not help feeling shocked. This fellow really hid himself deeply. Wenrinyu retorted coldly, "So what? After today, you will be a dead man. Could it be that you can report me to the Heavenly Fragrance's holy daughter?" "Xiaochen, we'll settle the score between us today." Gu Yuhan and Mu Yunju hated Xiaochen to the bone. Back at the Faux God World's God-conferring platform, Gu Yuhan, Mu Yunju, and the others got chopped in half by Xiaochen. If not for their master begging the Holy Lord to help, they would have died long ago. The experts of the Rakshasa and Yaksha clans calmed their souls for a moment before charging over. After being knocked back by the thunderclap, these sovereign emperor experts no longer dared to hold back. They either took out their soul tools or executed their secret techniques. For a time, many Dao domains joined together and pressed down on Xiaochen. He wanted to suppress Xiaochen's aura. He executed all sorts of killing moves, vowing to kill Xiaochen. Xiaochen did not panic. He activated his fourth-layer Thunder Dao domain, and used all sorts of secret techniques to deal with the attacks. The snow god whip in his hand continuously unleashed might. Pa, pa, pa. Immediately, heavy snow flew, and thunder crackled. Xiaochen brandished the whip, the snow god whip changing thousands of times, dazzling everyone's eyes. Thousands of plum blossom petals surrounded Xiaochen. Against the backdrop of the heavy snow, the plum blossoms looked as vibrant as fresh blood, looking poignant and beautiful. Using the might of the snow god whip and the supreme dragon fist, Xiaochen fought the 10-odd sovereign emperors without falling into a disadvantage. However, Xiaochen knew that this was only temporary. When he drained his soul energy and could no longer swing the snow god whip, only death awaited him. "I need to end this quickly." Xiaochen looked around and fixed his gaze on the 8th Prince Li Yun. Li Yun scolded, "Little mixed blood dragon. What are you looking at? Once your soul power is completely exhausted, this prince will definitely tear your body apart and extract your soul." Xiaochen smiled coldly in his heart. Of these people, Li Yun was the weakest. Furthermore, Li Yun had fought a huge battle with Luo Wang, and was no longer at his peak. Who knew where he got his confidence to be so arrogant? "You overestimate yourself. I'll start with you." Xiaochen's figure flashed as he dodged Wenrinyu and Mu Yunju's attacks. Then he shook his hand, and the flexible snow god whip suddenly charged at Li Yun like a venomous snake. The plum blossoms exploded, and the dart head made of 7-color stone turned into a beam of light as it shot out. It expanded infinitely in Li Yun's eyes, shattering the crescent moon that Li Yun sent out, and piercing into his forehead. Just as the dart head was about to strike Li Yun, a figure rushed over. "Your Highness, be careful." It was Elder Tang. He flew forward and blocked the sure hit attack. Poochie! The instant the dart head entered Li Yun's forehead, a crisp bang rang out. Li Yun's head exploded into powder, and he could not be more dead. Bang! The dart head did not lose any momentum, knocking Li Yun, who was behind, into the air. Li Yun vomited a mouthful of blood, and the scarlet moon above his head fell to the ground. Xiaochen stretched out his hand and beckoned, collecting that scarlet moon into his storage ring. Now is the time. This moment of distraction gave the other sovereign emperors a great opportunity. They locked onto Xiaochen at the same time, launching all sorts of killing moves at close range, sweeping away 1,000 armies. Xiaochen roared as he infused his soul energy into the snow god whip. The snow god whip became like a spear as it swept out. In an instant, the various killing moves broke. The shattered mysterious phenomena filled the air, and shockwaves spread out. Xiaochen felt that if he continued to use the snow god whip in such a gradual manner, he would exhaust himself to death sooner or later. I'll go all out. Gritting his teeth, Xiaochen activated his great desolate Ian bloodline and entered the state of martial and soul as one. Then he brandished the snow god whip without any care for his soul energy. Pa! A thunderclap shook the sky. The snow god whip split a demonic Dao loose cultivator, who had yet to open a divine vein, in half. Pa! 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 Without any care, Xiaochen's soul energy drained like a gushing river. He appeared to be in a frenzy. However, the horror of the snow god whip was fully revealed. Every time the whip landed, it tore open a crack in the ground. Terrifying demonic chi came out of the cracks. As the snow god whip lashed out madly, it was as if the world itself was shaking. It was as if the world was collapsing, and no one dared to block it. Pussy. Cracks appeared in Wenren Yu's star chart. Even though she managed to avoid the danger, she still managed to escape. Even though Wenren Yu managed to avoid the danger, the whip still tore his flesh, causing him to shriek miserably. As the crazed Xiaochen held the snow god whip, he looked like a demon god descending upon the world. In just a short moment, this boundless land had been shattered into pieces, and the earth quaked and the mountains swayed. Without exception, the many sovereign emperors were all covered in wounds. The sovereign emperors who had not opened a divine vein could not even block one whip, instantly dying miserably, their souls extinguished. Go, go, go. This fellow is crazy. The demonic Dao loose cultivators were all frightened out of their wits. They no longer dared to linger and fled. No one knew what would happen to them if they got struck. No one dared to gamble on whether they would die or not. Let's go. After all, we did not come to this final blood battlefield for the demonic sovereign corpse. It is not worth losing our lives here. We still have time. When Wenren Yu saw the cracks in the star chart, and the whip images whipped him into a miserable state, he did not dare to linger. After communicating with Gu Yuhan and Mu Yunju, Wenren Yu quickly retreated. Gu Yuhan and Mu Yunju could no longer hold on. After receiving the voice projection, they quickly fled. As the world crumbled, Xiaochen gave chase while holding the snow god whip. Xiaochen did not know how long he could last. He needed to inflict severe injuries on these people, killing as many as he could. Otherwise he would be the one to die. This was advancing as a way to retreat. After chasing for 2 million kilometers, Xiaochen stopped only when he could no longer see anyone. After overdrawing on his soul energy, the backlash started. Black cracks appeared on Xiaochen's face as if his soul would scatter. Gritting his teeth and snorting coldly, Xiaochen took out the ice-fire lotus platform and sat down cross-legged. Then he opened his left hand, which he had kept tightly closed during the battle. Without hesitation, he quickly sent the black divine nature flame into his forehead. Boom! The exhausted blue dragon divine seal, which was crying piteously for food, instantly received great nourishment, frantically absorbing and refining this divine nature flame. Unable to care much, Xiaochen refined the divine nature flame on the spot. Then he closed his eyes and circulated his energy. A scene of 10,000 dragons flying in the sky and diving into the ground appeared behind him. The ancient demonic sovereign's divine nature flame far surpassed Xiaochen's expectations. After an entire night, he managed to refine only 10% of it. However, this 10% allowed his soul energy to return to its peak, even go even higher. If he could completely refine it, he wondered how great of an opportunity it would be. However, Xiaochen had no choice but to stop now. A person had appeared on the ice-fire lotus platform. Xiaochen opened his eyes and saw Grim Reaper Lin Feng walking over. The other party showed a calm expression, not showing much emotion on his face. Lin Feng had been around all this while. Xiaochen knew that Lin Feng had many opportunities to kill him when he fought the 10-odd sovereign emperors. However, Lin Feng did not make a move. Clearly, Lin Feng was not a sinister person, someone who did not like to kill people behind their backs. Lin Feng only showed up now because he wanted to wait until he recovered before making a proper move. When Lin Feng arrived 50 kilometers before Xiaochen, he stopped moving rhythmically. As he walked over, Xiaochen could not feel any killing intent or aura. The instant Lin Feng stopped, The aura of the Death Dao domain turned into an overwhelming killing intent surging towards Xiaochen. Xiaochen's divine seal flickered. 3 Dao domains of the Ice Dao, the Thunder Dao, and the Saber Dao instantly appeared, layering over each other and blocking the aura of the Death Dao domain 25 kilometers away. Whoosh! The instant the two terrifying auras clashed, they silently merged into the surroundings, entangling with each other. I know that you will definitely not hand over the holy relic. Let's make a bet. Whoever wins will take the holy relic and leave. Lin Feng said slowly, enunciating every word as he looked at Xiaochen. As Lin Feng spoke, a green arrow image coiled around his right hand like a snake, flickering with a ghostly light. Xiaochen flipped his hand and caught the seed that Mu Zifeng handed him with 2 fingers. Then he nodded and said sure. Chapter 2198. One move. In the end, Grim Reaper Lin Feng was a hot-blooded man. Back then, before Xiaochen entered the battlefield, he already had a chance to make a move. Yesterday, when Xiaochen fought with others, he had many more chances to make a move. However, Lin Feng still did not choose to make a move. He waited until Xiaochen recovered to his peak and appeared before Xiaochen. Actually, one could figure it out after thinking about it. This person betrayed the underworld god Hall for a woman, destroyed his cultivation, and then started cultivating again. It was hard to say what kind of person Lin Feng was, but he was definitely not a despicable person who liked to sneak attack. The two both had great killing moves. Xiaochen had the divine-grade peony seed that Mu Zifeng gave him, and Lin Feng had the dragon-killing arrow forged by the ghost Ho. Deciding the victory in one move was very likely to decide life and death in one move. On the Ice Fire Lotus platform, Xiaochen slowly stood up and activated his alloy battle armor. At the same time, Lin Feng's alloy battle armor also activated. The silver battle armor, coupled with the black death chi, looked somewhat strange. The two did not dare to be careless. Xiaochen had already experienced how horrifying the Death Dao domain was. Back then, when Xiaochen fought the flood dragon human Yin Songming, he had experienced it. It was extremely difficult to deal with. Similarly, Lin Feng did not dare to underestimate Xiaochen. This was especially so when the other party had a great killing weapon, like the Snow God Whip. However, Xiaochen did not place much hope on the Snow God Whip, as cracks had already appeared on the 7-color stone. It was already impossible for the Snow God Whip to bring out yesterday's might. However, it was still the strongest move that Xiaochen could rely on. It had a miraculous effect on countering the Death Dao domain. The two looked at each other from 50 kilometers away. Before they started fighting, their auras had already started clashing. Xiaochen's 3 Dao domains layered over each other. Lightning, ice and saber intent intertwined, merging into every corner of space. The surrounding 50 kilometers looked calm. However, in reality, there were 2 auras clashing in the air. However, they cancelled each other out, resulting in a silent scene. When the two truly made a move, their Dao domains with divine seals erupted, shaking the ground and mountains. See. SSSSSS. Xiaochen raised his eyebrows. He saw strands of black fog spreading out from the ground behind Lin Feng. With one look, he knew that this was the materialization of the Death Dao domain. The mist was so thick that everything behind him seemed to have disappeared. Not even light could penetrate it. A huge black hole appeared, making one's heart palpitate and tremble. They were about to make their move. Xiaochen understood that this was the prelude to Lin Feng's attack. He tightened his grip on the Snow God Whip. Suddenly, without any warning, the two attacked at the same time. Xiaochen activated his great desolate Ian bloodline, and instantly infused most of his divine energy into the divine-grade peony seed in his left hand. Lin Feng stretched out his right hand and condensed his divine essence into a bow. The black fog behind him condensed into a huge figure. Like a grim reaper, it also condensed into a bow with great pressure. Fallen peony, fallen petals profusion. Touch of death. Xiaochen shouted as the peony seed in his hand suddenly bloomed. In that instant, the peony blossomed, and countless petals danced in the surroundings. A boundless life force swept out in all directions like a ferocious beast. The instant the peony blossomed, the Snow God Whip gave off a thunderous sound. Then, It turned into a dragon that pierced through the petals and shot towards Lin Feng. The instant Xiao Chen attacked, his heart trembled. Fear from his bloodline spread throughout his body, causing him to tremble slightly. Xiao Chen's great desolate Ian bloodline actually panicked. This was a familiar fear. Xiao Chen immediately startled to his senses. It was a ghost hoe. This was not an ordinary ghost hoe. It was a 10,000-year-old ghost hoe that a faux god expert had modified using a demonic Dao secret technique. Then Lin Feng infused his death Dao domain into it. Now a dragon-killing arrow was knocked on the bow. Whoosh! That dragon-killing arrow and Xiao Chen's snow god whip attacked at the same time without any delay. Shock flashed in the two's eyes. They had both underestimated their opponent's trump card. The ghost hoe was the nemesis of the dragon race. However, Xiao Chen did not fear an ordinary ghost hoe. However, this dragon-killing arrow had a 10,000-year-old ghost hoe as its foundation. Swerenji personally refined it using a demonic Dao secret technique. Then Lin Feng drove it with his death Dao domain. Its might had long surpassed Swerenji's expectations. Even Swerenji had not expected this dragon-killing arrow to have such a horrifying aura when driven with the death Dao domain. Lin Feng had not expected Xiao Chen to take out a peony seed when he attacked, either. As the boundless life force swallowed, the force field formed by Lin Feng's death Dao domain instantly weakened, and its defense plummeted. Pussy. The two could not react in time. The moment they attacked, they got hit at the same time. The snow god whip pierced through Lin Feng's alloy battle armor, and the 7-color stone pierced his chest, shattering his internal organs. The divine seal in Lin Feng's sea of consciousness also suffered severe damage. It dimmed, and his mind trembled. The horrifying saber intent contained in the dragon-killing arrow wreaked havoc in his body, battering the divine energy sea where his dantian was. Xiao Chen did not fare well, either. The dragon-killing arrow pierced through his chest, and turned into a ghost hoe. Then it rampaged through Lin Feng's body. Finally, it entered Lin Feng's sea of consciousness, and turned into a horrifying ghost hoe, wanting to swallow up the divine seal. Plop! The two fell to their knees at the same time. Blood leaked out of the corners of their mouths, and their complexions turned incredibly pale. With just one move, the two could no longer continue attacking. They had to focus on dealing with the problems they faced. Xiao Chen had to deal with the ghost hoe in his sea of consciousness, and expel the death chi in his body. Lin Feng had to deal with the saber chi in his sea of consciousness, and the life force contained in the 7-color stone. To him, that boundless life force was like a great flood or ferocious beast. The two coughed continuously, vomiting mouthfuls of blood. They looked incredibly miserable. After a while, Xiao Chen opened his eyes first. He had the 2-star alloy battle armor and the blue dragon divine body. In the end, his recovery and resistance were superior. Pooh! Lin Feng ferociously whipped the snow god whip out of his body. The snow god whip dragged the half-kneeling Lin Feng into the air before landing heavily on the ground. Bang! 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 Lin Feng's body bounced up and down a few times before finally falling to the ground weakly. However, he could not move at all. When the two fought, they competed on the trump cards that Mu Zifeng and Swerenji gave them. No matter how horrifying the ghost hoe was or how it changed, it was still a ghost hoe in the end. Coincidentally, Xiao Chen was different from the other dragon race cultivators. He had a strong resistance to the ghost hoe. The other dragon race cultivators would not be able to block this dragon-killing arrow. At this moment, the ghost hoe would devour their souls, and the death chi would corrode their physical bodies. Their souls would be destroyed, their physical bodies would rot, and their Dao would disappear. However, Xiao Chen had experienced the ghost hoe several times before. He had even killed the ghost hoe more than once. After the initial fear, he quickly calmed down. However, he still did not feel good. This injury was even more severe than when he fought the 10-odd sovereign emperors the day before. Xiao Chen looked at the motionless Lin Feng, who was barely breathing. Then he frowned slightly and said, "He can't be dead, right?" Right after Xiao Chen spoke, Lin Feng coughed intensely a few times. Then he struggled to stand up weakly. With one glance, Lin Feng could tell that Xiao Chen was in a better state than he was. "You win." Lin Feng's complexion paled. However, The scarier thing was that his pale face still had black veins covering it like a spider web. Lin Feng's face looked like it would explode at any moment, appearing horrified. Xiao Chen knew that this was the price of cultivating the Death Dao domain. The pain would be indescribable with words. Whoosh! Lin Feng gritted his teeth with much difficulty. As he looked at Xiao Chen, he ferociously waved his hand. Then the death qi in Xiao Chen's body was continuously sucked into his palm. Whoosh! Phew! Phew! Xiao Chen immediately felt much better. This Lin Feng was willing to admit defeat. He said one move and he meant it. If he lost in one move, the grudge would be over. Unfortunately, Xiao Chen could not help Lin Feng. The life force contained in the snow god whip was materialized from the divine grade peony. He could not retrieve it. Whoosh! Whoosh! Just as Xiao Chen was about to say something, several figures suddenly arrived in the air. Xiao Chen's expression changed slightly. He looked over and saw a group of abyssal underworld cultivators wearing underworld god guard uniforms charging over. The 8th Prince Li Yin seemed to be among them. When Xiao Chen clearly saw the faces of the two leaders, his expression changed again. It was Yen Songming and the deranged Jin Yuan. Xiao Chen chopped Yen Songming into pieces with one saber strike, but he did not die. Not only did Yen Songming not die, but he even seemed to have obtained an opportunity, and became an underworld god guard. Li Yun, was it that bastard who lured him here? A murderous intent immediately surged in Xiao Chen's heart. Given his and Lin Feng's current states, they could not fight at all. Someone is coming. Let's go. Xiao Chen had always been decisive. Without overthinking, his figure flashed and landed beside Lin Feng, preparing to leave with him. Whoosh! 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 However, it was too late. With a few flashes, Yen Songming and the others blocked Xiao Chen and Lin Feng. Just as Yen Songming was about to say something, his gaze landed on Lin Feng. This stunned him, and shock flashed in his eyes. After a while he muttered, "First senior brother, I thought you already died." Chapter 2199. First senior brother, I thought you were already dead. Yen Songming's words stunned Xiao Chen slightly. Then he looked at Lin Feng, whom he was supporting. What's going on? To think that these two were actually senior brothers. Based on Yen Songming's gaze, it seemed like they once had a deep connection. Yen Songming's usually cold and emotionless face appeared somewhat dazed. It was like he was immersed in some memories, unable to extricate himself. Why are you in a daze? I called you over to kill this fellow. My dynasty's sacred tool is still in his hands. Yen Songming, why are you still not making a move? When he saw Yen Songming in a daze, he said somewhat impatiently. The 8th Prince Li Yin got angry when he saw Xiao Chen. Yen Songming did not seem to hear Li Yin, remaining unmoved. He only stared at Lin Feng and the alloy battle armor Lin Feng wore. Lin Feng's gaze also fell on Yen Songming. When he saw the underworld god guard uniform, he felt slightly stunned. Congratulations. In the past, you have always wanted to join the underworld god guard. Now your wish has finally been fulfilled. Now you finally got your wish. The pale Lin Feng sighed softly, his tone somewhat mocking. Yen Songming said indifferently, indeed. Back then, I wanted to be like first senior brother, to join the underworld god hall, and become an underworld god guard. My first senior brother was the hero of the flood dragon humans. The disciple that master was the proudest of. He was the first flood dragon human to become an underworld god guard. The person I admired the most back then. At this point, the complicated expression in Yen Songming's eyes slowly faded, turning cold again. You are not my first senior brother. My first senior brother is already dead. He absolutely would not wear the Heavenly Alliance's alloy battle armor. All the more he would not support a mixed blood dragon. Back then, he swore to lead the flood dragon humans back to the divine dragon empire, the hero. Yen Songming's voice grew increasingly softer. As he spoke, the murderous intent coming from him intensified. Yen Songming turned back into that cold and emotionless Yen Songming, who could endure humiliation and bear a heavy burden. Compared to Lin Feng, Yen Songming was more suitable to be called the Grim Reaper. Lin Feng, no matter what method you use, delay him for another minute. I just need 1 minute. Otherwise, we will both die here. Xiaochen was not interested in the grudges between these two senior brothers. Right now he only wanted to live. Under the current situation, not to mention Yan Songming, just Zhen Yuan alone was more than enough to deal with the two of them. Furthermore, there were several underworld god guards and Li Yun here. Although they were not in desperate straits, they were not far from it. Lin Feng thought for a while before nodding in the end. Then he looked at Yan Songming and said, 2 months ago, I went to junior sister's grave. Thank you for your care and worship over the years. Her spirit in heaven should be very happy that little junior brother from back then has grown into a man now. Yan Songming paused for a moment. The murderous intent that he gathered vanished, and pain and nostalgia appeared in his eyes. Now, Xiaochen shouted ferociously and drew the tyrant's saber on his back. Then he executed the fiendish saber's first move, all things rejoicing together. In that instant, the final blood battlefield for 500,000 kilometers around seemed to come to life. The mountains and rivers were shaking, and the ancient departed spirits were roaring. Every inch of land and every inch of light and shadow turned into a fiend, turning into the saber intent in Xiaochen's heart. The instant Xiaochen drew the tyrant's saber, the entire world seemed to come to life. The instant the saber light left the scabbard, it turned into a saber hum that sounded like a peerless zither. It reverberated in all directions in this boundless battlefield. It sang loudly in the howling wind, rejoicing with all things in this immortal final blood battlefield filled with demonic creatures. The green mountains were the green mountains. The white clouds were the white clouds. All things had spirits. All things were fiends. What was a fiend? All things rejoiced together. The world turned silent. In the next moment, the vast battlefield and 500,000 kilometers of desolate plains rejoiced together with Xiaochen. Boundless saber lights burst out from the dark clouds in the sky, bursting out from the vast desolate plains. Aside from Xiaochen and Lin Feng, countless saber lights shot towards Yan Songming and the others. Immediately, it looked like the sky fell and the ground cracked. Resplendent saber lights lit up the entire battlefield. This startled Yan Songming and the other underworld god guards. They all made their moves to block the boundless saber lights. Dang! 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 Amid the chaos, the underworld god guards could not even take care of themselves. So Xiaochen carried Lin Feng and leaped high into the air. As Xiaochen leaped over the sky and landed, a bewitching red light shot out, catching Xiaochen and Lin Feng. Then they quickly flew far away. This was the demon blood vulture that had left and returned. It came at the right time at the crucial moment. Pussy. The moment Xiaochen landed on the demon blood vulture's back, he vomited a mouthful of blood. Executing all things rejoicing together in a severely injured state, Xiaochen really did not care about his life. However, in the earlier situation, Xiaochen had no other choice. He had to fight for a chance of survival. The saber chi materialized by all things rejoicing together flustered the underworld god guards. The saber chi pierced through the weaker underworld god guards, leaving them in miserable states. By the time everything calmed down, the surroundings had already changed. The terrain had changed. This all things rejoicing together had turned space into an unrecognizable mess. Damn it! Yan Songming, why did you not make a move earlier? Why were you in a freaking daze? The 8th Prince Li Yin raged. He pointed at Yan Songming and cursed. Yan Songming simply could not stand wasting such a good opportunity on his grandson. How could he endure this? Furthermore, he had been severely injured by the saber chi, so he could not help but feel even angrier. Bang! However, before he could finish cursing, a figure suddenly appeared beside Li Yun. Before he could react, he was sent flying by a kick. After landing on the ground, that foot stomped heavily on his face. The one who attacked was Zhen Yuan, the demonic blade. Yan Songming looked indifferently and said calmly, "Let him go." Pa. Zhen Yuan did not hold back. He tapped the ground with the tip of his foot, and sent the other party flying again. After a few ups and downs, Li Yin vomited a mouthful of blood. Then, he looked at Yan Songming and the other underworld god guards in a somewhat sorry state. He discovered that these people were all looking at him expressionlessly. Their calm expressions made him feel somewhat afraid. What do you want to do? Yan Songming, don't forget our agreement. Previously you reneged on it, not helping me deal with Luo Huang. That was already too much. Are you rebelling now? Li Yin asked with a somewhat trembling voice, feeling fear for some reason. Agreement? What agreement? I have an agreement with your first brother. He told me to take care of you and not to die in this final blood battlefield, embarrassing the Shuowu dynasty. Yen Songming revealed a smile as he spoke with some mockery. What? This stupefied Li Yin. It was like a bolt from the blue, rendering him speechless for a long time. Li Yin came to the final blood battlefield to obtain the ancient demonic sovereign true god flame, so that he could make a comeback and fight for the throne with his first brother. When Li Yin suddenly heard Yen Songming's words, the horror in his heart was easy to imagine. It turned out that his first brother had anticipated Li Yin's every move. Furthermore, his first brother had even sent Yen Songming to watch him. Yen Songming said softly, "So don't overthink. The underworld god guards did not come to the final blood battlefield to be your helper. If not for your first brother's instructions, I would not have bothered with you. Now scram. Scram as far as you can. Don't appear before me again." Li Yin was at a loss. However, when he saw the cold gaze in Yen Songming's eyes, he suddenly felt that Yen Songming's emotions seemed somewhat unstable. Yen Songming was not joking. If Li Yin did not leave now, he might not be able to. Li Yin used his hands and feet to crawl to his feet, fleeing in a fluster. However, after taking a few steps, a roar from hell suddenly erupted from behind. When Li Yin looked back, the entire world immediately turned dark. The black mysteries of death lingered, looking like a ferocious beast from hell opening its mouth and swallowing Li Yin up. Amid the miserable shriek, Li Yin roared, "Yen Songming! Yen Songming, you did not keep your word." Then Li Yin's voice grew softer and softer until the death chi swallowed up all his life force, turning him into a dried-up corpse. "When did I say that I would not kill you? Idiot!" Yen Songming snorted coldly. However, the cold chi from his body did not weaken by much. Zhen Yuan, who was at the side, knew that Yen Songming had purposely let Xiao Chun and Lin Feng go earlier. In the end, Zhen Yuan could not steel himself to truly kill his first senior brother. However, Yen Songming had already become the Yen Songming that Zhen Yuan knew. From now on, Zhen Yuan would no longer have any worries. Yen Songming's earlier benevolence meant that Yen Songming had made a clean break with the past, no longer having any ties to it. From now on, the past would become the norm. As for Li Yin, it was purely because Yen Songming had nowhere to vent the pain and depression in his heart. Furthermore, he sought death himself, so he vented it all on Yen Songming. If Li Yin died, so be it. He would just treat it as a gift to his first brother. "Senior brother Yen, should we continue searching for the ethereal immortal palace key or chase after the traitor Lin Feng?" An underworld god guard asked softly after stepping forward. Yen Songming replied seriously, "We must kill the traitor Lin Feng. Both of them are injured and cannot go far. Bring over the underworld god guards, keeping an eye on the universe origin sect and the profound heaven holy land. Search the entire final blood battlefield and find these two." "Yes." Chapter 2200. When the blood moon set, the entire final blood battlefield plunged into absolute darkness. Speaking of which, it was strange. The abyssal underworld only had some light at night, when the blood moon appeared. On the contrary, it was always dusky during the day. As for the final blood battlefield, it was pitch black during the day. Even spiritual sense was restricted by the complicated environment of the battlefield. The demon blood vulture carried Xiao Chun and Lin Feng. After flying for half a day, it had to stop. The demon blood vulture had to stop. Xiao Chun and Lin Feng could no longer hold on, and needed to recuperate. What the two lacked was time. Even with their peak strength, they might not be able to block the underworld god guard's attacks. However, if they did not recover from their injuries, they would not have any chance to leave. Only death awaited them. Whoosh! The demon blood vulture landed, and the two landed one after another. Xiao Chun looked at Lin Feng and handed the Icefire Lotus platform to him. Lin Feng shook his head and said, "Use it yourself. You forcefully executed a killing move. Your injuries are no lighter than mine." Xiao Chun said softly, You are overthinking. Perhaps my Dao domain is not as good as yours, but my physical body is much stronger. My injuries will definitely recover faster than yours. Lin Feng thought for a while and did not refuse. Then he sat cross-legged on the ice-fire lotus platform and started to treat his injuries. The final blood battlefield was not peaceful in the darkness. Demonic creatures ran amok, and corpses littered the ground. The demon blood vulture roamed the surroundings, protecting the two. Circulating the demonic cloud heaven swallowing art to absorb the surrounding demonic chi to heal in the final blood battlefield would definitely be faster than the 10,000 dragons art. With a thought, Xiaochen circulated the demonic cloud heaven swallowing art. His body immediately became like a funnel, frantically absorbing the surrounding demonic chi. As Xiaochen circulated his cultivation technique, a huge demonic cloud bird image slowly appeared, encasing Xiaochen. This demonic cloud bird, a great desolate Aeon ferocious beast, opened its huge mouth and swallowed the surroundings, looking like it wanted to swallow up the world. Xiaochen's divine energy recovered quickly. Now he was one with the demonic and divine. Whether it was demonic chi or spiritual energy, it would eventually turn into primal chaos veritable essence energy. After that he could manifest spiritual energy and demonic chi divine energy as he pleased, merging them into one. There was no distinction between righteous and demonic. To put it simply, how much devil chi divine essence there was how much spirit chi divine essence there was. The two were one, and they were each other's shadow. 2 hours later, Xiaochen opened his eyes. His injuries were already half healed. Xiaochen's internal organs had all healed. Only his divine seal and soul were still somewhat dim. Unfortunately, this place was not peaceful. Otherwise, it would be a good idea to continue refining the divine fire of the ancient demon monarch. However, once the process of refining the divinity flame was interrupted, the gains wouldn't make up for the losses. Not everyone was like Lin Feng, giving him a chance to have a fair fight with him. On the ice-fire lotus platform, Lin Feng opened his eyes at the same time. With the help of the ice-fire lotus platform, his complexion looked much better in just 4 hours. Of course, this was only relatively speaking. In reality, there was not much color on his face, but the black aura that resembled a spider web had already disappeared. Neither of them were talkative people. They looked at each other and nodded slightly, not saying anything. Then they each did their own things. Xiaochen took out a bottle of burning moon and leaned against a rock to taste it alone. After Xiaochen finished the wine in the bottle, it was time to continue. The longer he stayed in the final blood battlefield, the more danger he would face. Lin Feng casually lay on the ground, toying with an exquisite mirror box. He rubbed it repeatedly with a gentle gaze. When Xiaochen glanced at it, he nearly vomited the wine in his mouth. Lin Feng's current expression was too different from his usual stern expression. The strong contrast between this and the way he rubbed the mirror box looked like he was caressing a young girl's hand. Honestly speaking, Xiaochen felt that Lin Feng looked like a pervert. After taking only one glance, Xiaochen looked away. If he took a few more glances, he might really vomit the wine in his mouth. Xiaochen took out the snow god whip. The dart head made of 7-color stone already had many cracks. When he removed the dart head, it immediately lost its divine nature. Xiaochen shook his head and sighed softly. No wonder Luo Huang treated it as an ornament. The Heavenly Alliance's holy relic had lost too much of its divine nature over time. Furthermore, Hua Tianyang had used it too often back then, so it had probably overdrawn. Otherwise, the dart head would not have fallen off. Now that Xiaochen used it, it could be considered to have used up the last of its power. It might just be trash. Hua Tianyang probably would not be too happy about sending it back. The 7-color stone was no longer comparable to the one from back then. After Xiaochen finished the wine in the bottle, he shook it a few times. When he confirmed that there was nothing left, he stood up to leave. However, he discovered that Lin Feng was still doing the same thing. Xiaochen found this somewhat strange. He walked over and asked, "What is in this box?" Lin Feng startled awake and sat up. Then he said softly, "This is the token of love that my junior sister gave me back then." "What is it?" Junior sister said that it was her most precious thing. She handed it to me and told me to take good care of it, to treat it well forever. You still have not told me what is in it? Lin Feng shook his head and said, I don't know what it is either. Since junior sister said that it is the most precious thing, then it is definitely the most precious thing. I could not bear to open it. After she passed away, I could not bear to open it. What if I opened it and it was gone? Xiaochen felt somewhat confused. In the end, he did not even know what it was. Yet he had been touching it for so long. I did not misunderstand you. You are indeed a monster. However, Xiaochen's curiosity was piqued. He wanted to see what was in it. Let's open it and take a look. Lin Feng said seriously, there is no need. Junior sister said that it is the most precious thing, so it is definitely the most precious thing. I will know without opening it. This fellow is really infatuated, Xiaochen thought. He could not help feeling some admiration for Lin Feng. Lin Feng flew into a rage for his lover, betraying the underworld god Hall, and crippling his demonic Dao cultivation technique. Then he restarted his cultivation with a righteous Dao cultivation technique. All for one thought: to charge back and take revenge for her. Sometimes when Xiaochen thought about it, Yan Songming was right. Lin Feng's first senior brother was indeed dead. After the person he loved the most died, he no longer had a first senior brother. Such a person lived only for his obsession. Once that obsession was fulfilled, there might be no more meaning in living. After taking revenge, Lin Feng would probably choose to commit suicide to accompany his junior sister, no longer longing for anything in the world. Seeing that Lin Feng was unwilling to open it, Xiaochen entered deep thought. Then he said softly, perhaps she wants to say something to you in this mirror box. Think about it. Your junior sister's words are definitely very important. She definitely wants you to know. You have been unwilling to open it all these years. Isn't that because you are not willing to see what your junior sister wants to say to you? Lin Feng felt slightly stunned when he heard that. After thinking about it carefully, he felt that what Xiaochen said made sense. Lin Feng's expression changed somewhat, but he still felt some doubts. Xiaochen continued, open it. Perhaps the two of us will not be able to leave this final blood battlefield alive. At that time, it will be a lifetime of regret. Xiaochen was right. No matter what, this was the abyssal underworld's territory. Two Heavenly Alliance members had appeared, and had a grudge with Yan Songming. The longer they delayed, the harder it would be for them to leave. Originally, Xiaochen had not expected to expose his identity during the mission, and face so many twists and turns. Mu Zifeng and Swearenji probably would not have expected this, either. All the more, they would not have guessed that Xiaochen and Lin Feng would work together to flee. Xiaochen's words thoroughly moved Lin Feng. At this moment, his survival was uncertain. The underworld god guards might catch up at any moment. If Lin Feng died, it would be as Xiaochen said, a lifetime of regret. When the mirror box opened, Xiaochen and Lin Feng were somewhat stunned. This was especially so for Lin Feng. He stared at the mirror box for a while before saying, a mirror? How can it be a mirror? Unexpectedly, when he opened the mirror box, there was nothing but a mirror in it. A confused Lin Feng appeared in the mirror. His pale complexion, the grief in his eyes, the stubbornness hidden in the depths of his eyes, the helplessness of living like a walking corpse, and the pain he suffered over the years all appeared clearly on that face in the mirror. Lin Feng felt somewhat stunned. This is me? Kassier. As Lin Feng felt confused, a crisp sound came from the mirror. The mirror cracked, and a drop of blood seeped out. The blood slowly dripped out like a tear, looking extremely strange. What happened? Lin Feng was dumbfounded. Then he looked at Xiaochen angrily and said, I told you not to open it, but you insisted on making me open it. Now it's really gone. Xiaochen felt that something was strange. He looked at Lin Feng and said calmly, are you trying to kill me with that look in your eyes? Don't think too much about it. My injuries are lighter than yours. The one who will die will be you. Humph. Although his words were harsh, they were the truth. Lin Feng coldly snorted and ignored Xiaochen. Xiaochen said softly, this mirror is a little strange. Let me take a look. Without any hesitation, Xiaochen took it over and blocked Lin Feng, who was about to snatch it back, with one hand. With the other, he held the mirror box and examined it carefully. So that is the case. This mirror reminded Xiao Chun of the Smiling Daughter Pavilion's fairy basket. However, this mirror did not have that many special tricks. What was special about it was that it could feel the emotions of the person in the mirror and make a decision. Just as Lin Feng was about to explode, Xiao Chun returned the mirror box to him. I understand now. This mirror is indeed strange. It can feel your emotions and react accordingly. Lin Feng raised his eyebrows and asked, "What did you say?" Xiao Chun said indifferently, "If you don't believe me, you can smile at the mirror. If I guess right, the mirror should slowly heal." Lin Feng felt suspicious. As he looked at the bleeding mirror, he entered deep thought without saying anything. After a while he said, "I can't smile." Xiao Chun thought about it and agreed. Getting him to smile was even harder than ascending to heaven. "I got it. Watch me. Look at the mirror and don't move. That's right. That's it." Xiao Chun walked over to Lin Feng's side and placed his right hand on Lin Feng's mouth. Then he pushed up and forced out a smile. It had to be said that this forced smile was uglier than crying. However, something strange happened. It was as Xiao Chun said. The mirror slowly healed, and the flowing blood vanished. Xiao Chun lowered his hand, and Lin Feng's face turned lifeless and cold again. The mirror immediately stopped healing, and the cracks started spreading. Do you understand now? This is your junior sister's most proper item. What is the most precious? The person in the mirror is the most precious to her. Didn't you swear to charge back to the Divine Dragon Empire? This is clearly sending yourself to death. Your junior sister did not say it, but she understood it in her heart. That's why she gave you this mirror. She hoped that you could understand that all she cared about was you. She wanted you to live, wanted you to be happy, wanted you to be happy. She would be like this mirror, watching you forever. As Xiao Chun spoke, he found himself unable to continue. Perhaps back then, his junior sister already knew that the Underworld God Hall's Vice Hall Master would kill her as a cultivation furnace. She also knew that Lin Feng would disregard everything and fall out with the Underworld God Hall for her. Hence, when she was alive, she gave this mirror to Lin Feng to let him understand her feelings. I don't want you to become the hero of the Flood Dragon humans. I don't want you to be infatuated with me. I only hope that you can live and smile when you are free. That's all. That's all. However, Lin Feng was destined to be a hero. He was destined to never be able to smile. There were infatuated people in the world. Xiao Chun thought of himself. What about me? Am I infatuated? Chapter 2201. Junior sister Lin Feng's infatuation reminded Xiao Chun of his own emotional wounds, making him feel somewhat helpless. It was easy to criticize others, but it was hard to see oneself clearly. Xiao Chun shook his head, not bothering with this matter. The night was long, and he was not in the mood to continue traveling. After rummaging around in his storage ring, Xiao Chun found the pipa that the Scarlet Blood Pirate King once left behind. This was a medial-grade soul tool. Xiao Chun had intended to give it to his little martial nephew to use as a token of love for the headliner Ling Long. Xiao Chun recalled that his little martial nephew had a 5-year agreement with the headliner Ling Long many years ago. Now, it had been 10 years since he parted with his little martial nephew. Xiao Chun wondered how his little martial nephew was doing since he went to keep the appointment. It was all because of love and helplessness. Xiao Chun casually strummed the pipa, unable to vent his emotions. The sound of his saber being drawn rivaled the most wondrous zither music in the world. However, Xiao Chun was not good at music. Even though he had a powerful instrument, he could not play a complete tune. He could only casually play a seemingly unrelated tune in this boundless night. Ding, ding, dong, dong. However, the pipa in Xiao Chun's hand was a medial-grade soul tool. Even though Xiao Chun was not good at music, the pipa was connected to his heart. The tune he played was what he thought and longed for in his heart, which was surprisingly pleasant to the ear. It was like a clear spring in the mountains, flowing water splashing rocks. It was pleasing to the ear, containing a trace of sorrow and helplessness. There was also a trace of longing gathered at his fingertip, turning into a clear sound that lingered endlessly in an empty valley. In the boundless night of the final blood battlefield, which had existed since ancient times, two men, One played the pipa in a comical manner, his movements jerky and inelegant. The other was even more comical, doing his best to squeeze out a smile in the mirror, trying to repair the broken mirror and stop it from dripping blood. Suddenly, the pipa music stopped. Xiao Chen raised his eyebrows, and there seemed to be a sharp light on his face, illuminating the dark night. Lin Feng put away the mirror box. His face filled with coldness and sternness. One for each. Xiao Chen suggested to Lin Feng. Lin Feng nodded slightly. Whoosh, the two turned into beams of light, moving very quickly. In the blink of an eye, they were each 50,000 kilometers away. Before the two underworld god guards, who had followed the pipa music, could react, they were startled by Xiao Chen and Lin Feng's sudden appearance. Xiao Chen and Lin Feng would not be able to fight for long in their current states. In Xiao Chen and Feng's underworld Chen and Feng, the underworld Lin Feng could not last for long. This Xiao Chen's king. Xiao Chen, your head is worth an inferior grade soul tool to the Rakshasa race. Xiao Feng of Chen of. With Lin Chen back, Xiao Chen. When he Chen to the Lin. Chen shock. When he Feng, when Chen for Chen had Tian. Xiao. Ling Chen to say to he Chen to he. Chen and Chen. In. Back then, Xiao Chen had not even reached sovereign personage, so one could easily imagine the shock it caused. Xiao Chen asked softly. Is it that valuable? However, I'm afraid that you do not have the ability to take it. Humph. Is that so? The spirit Chen smiled coldly. Then he grasped the bone spike in his left shoulder with his right hand. Then he pulled hard, and a white bone sword came out of his body. The sword intent surrounding the bone sword was connected to the spirit Chen's mind, flesh and blood. Using the bone as the sword and the body as the scabbard. The stronger the physical body, the stronger the sword. The martial techniques and cultivation techniques of the Rakshasa race were very strange. Xiao Chen entered deep thought. The Rakshasa race's sword Dao seemed to have some similarities to his flawless saber Dao. However, the spirit Chen was even more extreme. He directly refined his shoulder bone into a sword and fed it with his flesh, blood, and soul. His cultivation, Dao domain, cultivation technique, martial technique, and even his divine seal were all in this bone sword. Take this. The spirit Chen thrust his sword forward. Just this strike alone caused the entire world to tremble. Rumble. The sword move was like a ferocious beast from the great desolate Aeon. Now it easily crushed the tall mountains and the ground unblockable. Interesting. Unfortunately, I do not have time to exchange pointers with you. Xiao Chen's eyes lit up. He felt interested in this Rakshasa race's sword Dao. If Xiao Chen had time, he could use his flawless saber Dao to exchange pointers with the other party. However, now was not the time. Mahamaya abstinence violation technique, Buddha in the mortal realm. When facing the overwhelming mysterious phenomenon materialized by this sword move, Xiao Chen countered in an even more berserk manner, drawing the tyrant saber. A supreme killing Buddha image appeared. That killing Buddha was 30 kilometers tall, looking down on the world. Its expression was as cold as ice, emotionless and devoid of desires. Only its Buddhist might shook the surroundings. Buddha is merciful. Bang! The killing Buddha ferociously pushed its palms forward, and the middle-aged Rakshasa race's attack instantly crumbled. Just as the Rakshasa race was about to make a move, Xiao Chen roared ferociously. With the support of his divine seal, the Ice Dao, the Thunder Dao, and the Saber Dao spread out layer by layer. 3 Dao domains. The fourth layer of the Thunder Dao domain. The middle-aged Rakshasa cultivator's expression instantly turned grave, and the bone sword in his hand flew out and stabbed forward. Beams of sword light turned into resplendent black light. In an instant, they poked thousands of holes in Xiao Chen's Dao domain. What a sharp sword! Naturally, Xiao Chen would not let the Rakshasa race continue as he pleased. With a flick of his finger, he sent out a raindrop. What is a fiend? Water droplet breaking the firmament. The second move of the fiendish saber inheritance, a raindrop, instantly struck the Rakshasa race sovereign emperor. Boom! Boundless saber light tore apart the Rakshasa race sovereign emperor's flesh, clothes and armor, leaving only a skeleton. Die for me. Xiao Chun did not show mercy after gaining the upper hand. He executed the Mahamaya abstinence violation saber techniques, entering hell, while carrying the might of his third-layer Dao domain. The saber light turned into a dragon, turning into a world-destroying dragon that roared ferociously from hell. Then it struck the skeleton. Kase. Kase. The skeleton immediately shattered into pieces. A flash of white light wrapped around the shattered bone sword as it frantically fled far away. Xiao Chun sheathed his saber and did not give chase. It would be very difficult to truly kill a sovereign emperor. As Xiao Chun thought this, he heard a miserable shriek from the other side. It came from the other underworld god guard. Lin Feng's death Dao domain eroded away all the life force of the underworld god guard, causing it to die powerlessly. Xiao Chun was flabbergasted. Then he thought to himself, of course, even a sovereign emperor would be wise not to offend a madman who grasped the death Dao domain. Whoosh! After dealing with their opponents, the two soared into the air and landed on the demon blood vulture's back. Then, they flew quickly through the night. The two spent the remaining days dodging the pursuit of the underworld god guards. To sovereign emperors, the final blood battlefield was not very vast. However, they could not break out of it. The two fought with the pursuers practically every day and night. Furthermore, they did not dare to linger. Once they were delayed, the underworld god guards would surround them and attack them. At that time, only death awaited them. This was how miserable it was to be in someone else's territory. If they were in the central great realm, given the Heavenly Alliance's strength, they would not be in such a sorry state. Unfortunately, the ninth layer of the abyssal underworld was the underworld god hall's main camp. Once the underworld god guards targeted them, it would be extremely difficult to shake them off. Xiao Chun would be fine. Actually, he could use the Divine Universe Steel to return to the Blue Dragon's old lands and shake off the pursuers. However, if he did that, he would have to abandon Lin Feng. After thinking about it, Xiao Chun decided that there was no need to use the Divine Universe Steel, unless he was truly in dire straits. However, it was not all bad news. After half a month, the two recovered 80% of their injuries. While they were not at their peak, they were not far from it. As long as they did not get surrounded by more than 10 underworld god guards, they would not be in danger of getting delayed. Touch of Death. Mahamaya Abstinence Violation Technique. In the mortal realm, when Xiao Chun and Lin Feng knocked back the underworld god guards chasing them again, they showed strange expressions. Xiao Chun, did you notice that, aside from the underworld god guards fighting at full power at the start, something happened later? These underworld god guards only want to trap us in the final blood battlefield, and are not in a rush to surround and kill us. Lin Feng voiced the doubts in his heart as he looked at Xiao Chun. Xiao Chun nodded slightly. However, he could not understand what was going on. The two could feel it. In the first 7 days, the underworld god guards followed them like shadows, not giving the two time to catch their breaths. The underworld god guards looked like they wanted to kill Xiao Chun and Lin Feng, not stopping until they were dead. However, something happened. Suddenly, they felt that the underworld god guards' pursuit weakened significantly. However, they chased but did not fight. It seemed like they only wanted to delay the two in the final blood battlefield. After they dealt with other matters, they would surround and kill Xiao Chun and Lin Feng. Say, do you think it is possible that the underworld god guard's target was not us or even the ancient demonic sovereign corpse from the start? Think about it. If they cared about the ancient demonic sovereign corpse, why did they not appear when Luo Huang made a move? A thought occurred to Xiao Chun. The more he thought about it, the more plausible it seemed. He continued, that must be the case. Back then, I saw Li Yun cursing and saying that someone betrayed him. Now that I think about it, this group of underworld god guards must have made an appointment with him, but did not show up. Lin Feng said after some thought, the underworld god guards rarely interfere in these matters. When they move out, they usually target the righteous Dao cultivators and the righteous Dao super factions. Xiao Chun entered deep thought. The righteous Dao faction? Is it the Profound Gate's Holy Son, Wenrenyu's group? Is it possible that this group of people's target is not the ancient demonic sovereign corpse, either? Thinking about it, a group of righteous Dao factions does not have much desire for the demonic sovereign corpse. They might just be taking advantage of the situation. Ha! The two of us are confused. Why are we guessing? We only need to know that the underworld god guard's main target is not the two of us. A bright light flickered in Xiao Chen's eyes. He smiled faintly and said, "Since that is the case, we will not leave. We will use this opportunity to recover our strength to our peak in one go. If I refine that divine nature flame, it might be possible for me to break through to one-vein sovereign emperor." When Xiao Chen gained the strength of a one-vein sovereign emperor, and Lin Feng recovered to his peak, they could break through the seal and charge out of the final blood battlefield. Lin Feng said softly, "If I refine the life force of the divine grade peony, I might be able to break through as well." "Your death great Tao can refine life force?" Xiao Chen asked, finding it strange. Lin Feng nodded. "The strongest poison is the best tonic. As long as one can endure the pain and fear of life and death, you can also refine the death great Tao. As long as you are willing, I can teach you the method to help you grasp the death great Tao." Xiao Chen felt tempted for a moment. However, he chose to give up in the blink of an eye. Based on Lin Feng's appearance when he suffered the rebound, he could easily imagine the pain. It was not as easy as Lin Feng made it out to be. Furthermore, Xiao Chen had the cycle Tao, which was even stronger than the death great Tao. However, it was harder to cultivate. We will talk about this matter later. Right now, let's find a quiet place to make our breakthroughs. Let the demon blood vulture protect us. Chapter 2202. After some speculation, they concluded that something had changed with the underworld god guards, and that they had changed targets. Xiao Chen and Lin Feng decisively chose to enter closed-door cultivation to break through without hesitation. This opportunity was fleeting. If they missed it and the underworld god guards recovered their wits, they would be trapped in this final blood battlefield forever. Xiao Chen chose to refine the divine nature flame, and Lin Feng chose the divine grade peony's life force. He wanted to make a breakthrough while lingering between life and death. Comparing the two, Xiao Chen was much safer than Lin Feng. He only needed to refine the divine nature flame. Lin Feng had to risk the rebound of his life force. If he could not endure it, the consequences would be dire. Choosing the Death Dao domain required an unimaginable price. However, it was nothing special to Lin Feng. Above the Ice Fire Lotus platform, Xiao Chen sat cross-legged and circulated his energy with his eyes closed, using the demonic cloud heaven swallowing art to refine the divine nature flame. Back then, Xiao Chen had absorbed only a tenth of the divine nature flame left by an ancient demonic sovereign, allowing him to recover from his injuries and return to his peak. If Xiao Chen could absorb all of it, he would be filled with anticipation. What kind of opportunity would he obtain? In the soul pool, the divine flame filled the entire soul sea. The black flame was burning fiercely. As far as the eye could see, the entire soul pool was filled with this divine flame. The blue dragon divine seal in the center of Xiao Chen's soul sea frantically absorbed this black flame. Time passed. Soon one day and night passed. In his soul pool, Xiao Chen's blue dragon divine seal flickered with light as the divine nature flame absorbed it. Xiao Chen sat cross-legged on the Ice Fire Lotus platform with his eyes closed, appearing very holy. Specks of holy light appeared around him, as if he was bathing in a celestial rain. The sun and moon behind him shone together, looking very wondrous. Xiao Chen could clearly feel his soul energy growing at a horrifying rate, continuously climbing. Boom! The blue dragon divine seal in Xiao Chen's soul pool flickered with light before exploding. The scattered soul pool quickly regathered and formed a brand new divine seal. A halo appeared around the azure dragon divine seal, bathing the entire divine seal in divine light. Before Xiao Chen's divine energy broke through, his soul energy already reached the level of a one-vein sovereign emperor. Xiao Chen was overjoyed. There was still half of the ancient demon sovereign's divine nature flame left to be absorbed. This was just the beginning. Indeed, 2 days later, Xiao Chen's soul energy broke through again, reaching two-vein sovereign emperor. An even larger divine vein halo appeared around the azure dragon divine seal. Bathed in the 2 layers of divine vein halo, Xiao Chen's body trembled. He could clearly feel that the power of the divine seal was no longer the same as before. The greatest difference between a sovereign emperor and a human monarch was that aside from divine energy, their divine seals could be infused into their Tao domains. With the support of the divine seal, the Tao domain was like it had blood, flesh, and soul. Its might was completely different. Even now, Xiao Chen possessed the soul energy of a two-veined sovereign emperor. Even if his cultivation was lacking, he would not fear a two-veined sovereign emperor in a clash of Tao domains. Of course, this wasn't the end because there was still a third of the divinity flame remaining. The last third was the essence of the ancient demonic king, a real god expert's divine fire. Whether Xiao Chen could break through or not depended on this. After another 3 days, the 10,000 dragon images on the divine energy sea under Xiao Chen's dantian suddenly gave off a bright golden light. The dragon images turned into beams of divine light and charged out of the divine energy sea, continuously crashing into each other. After advancing to Sovereign Emperor, Xiao Chen's body no longer had an ordinary body. He had already shed his mortal body. The divine veins in Xiao Chen's body waited to be opened. Once they were opened, his divine energy could circulate unobstructed. The divine veins would no longer be controlled by the meridians, but by the stronger divine veins. Bang! 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 As the 10,000 beams of divine light continuously charged, the bottleneck Xiao Chen held started to loosen. Since entering the Heavenly Alliance for more than a year, Xiao Chen had been making preparations. If nothing unexpected happened, he would be able to open a divine vein within 3 years. Now that Xiao Chen obtained the divine nature flame and his soul energy soared, it also stimulated his cultivation. This was a form of reciprocation. It was like how a person's spirit would improve after their body recovered. When the soul grew stronger, it would also nourish the physical body. Essence, qi, and spirit became one, influencing each other. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Xiao Chen frantically tried to break through his bottleneck. This time, Xiao Chen was determined to succeed. He was very confident in himself. Xiao Chen tried again and failed again and again. With each failure, he suffered great pain. However, Xiao Chen did not care. He firmly believed that as long as he persisted and did not give up, there would be a result. Boom! Xiao Chen did not know how many times he failed. So many that he could not even remember. Then he heard an explosion in his divine energy sea. It seemed like a brand new door opened in his physical body. A divine vein opened from the dantian to the heart, then to the forehead. Finally, it connected to the soul pool and the divine seal. Good things came in pairs. Just as Xiao Chen felt confused, his soul energy broke through again. Another ring of light appeared under the blue dragon divine seal. His soul energy now reached the level of a 3-veined sovereign emperor. Xiao Chen opened his eyes. However, he did not show joy in them. Instead, he appeared somewhat confused. Breaking through to 1-veined sovereign emperor was understandable. Xiao Chen had been preparing for this for a year. Furthermore, he cultivated 2 powerful cultivation techniques, the 10,000 dragons art and the demonic cloud heaven swallowing art. Even without this divine nature flame, breaking through would have been a matter of time. What confused Xiao Chen was that his soul energy had increased so quickly. In a mere 7 days, he had reached 3-veined sovereign emperor. This was an incredible progress. In reality, Xiao Chen had somewhat underestimated the divine nature flame. This was the divine nature flame of an ancient demonic sovereign's true body. It was not as simple as Xiao Chen thought. However, the true reason was Xiao Chen's body. The Thundercliff tree, a 100,000-year-old herb king, that he had consumed and refined in the faux god world long ago, already had terrifying accumulations. Many medicinal properties had settled in his body, not being activated. That was a natural treasure that tempted even faux gods. The benefits it brought far surpassed Xiao Chen's expectations. Furthermore, Xiao Chen's soul energy accumulations were very strong, resulting in such a horrifying increase in his soul energy. If it was anyone else, even if they refined the flames of divinity, only their soul energy and cultivation would increase by 1 element each. If it were a 3-veined sovereign emperor or above, the effects would be significantly reduced after refining it. It would be unknown whether they could break through or not. This is still somewhat terrifying. I need to consolidate my strength. Xiao Chen could not figure out the reason. After calmly analyzing it, he felt that advancing his soul energy too easily might not be a good thing. If it were anyone else, they would definitely rejoice. However, Xiaochen had his own plans. How could he limit his vision to that of a three-veined sovereign emperor? He considered even further. Xiaochen imagined his opponents to be the experts of the entire Great Thousand Realms, the entire martial epoch. He was no longer the Xiaochen of the past. Xiaochen leaped down from the lotus platform and stretched his body. With a thought, he felt his divine energy surge with strong waves. The surging divine energy gathered in his palm through his divine veins. What was even more miraculous was that this divine energy already contained his Tao domain and soul energy. That divine vein connected the nodes of his divine energy, divine seal, and physical body, merging the three into one. Now Xiaochen truly entered the sovereign emperor realm. Whoosh! Suddenly, Xiaochen felt a sharp light turn into a surging aura pressing over from the side. Xiaochen turned around and looked over. That surging aura instantly became like mud falling into the sea before him, vanishing into nothing. It was Lin Feng, who had broken through at this moment, successfully advancing to one-vein sovereign emperor. Lin Feng opened his eyes and happened to meet Xiaochen's gaze. He immediately felt immense pressure, feeling like he was weaker than the other party from the depths of his soul. What's going on? His cultivation is clearly the same as mine. Why does he give me such immense pressure? Shock appeared in Lin Feng's eyes. He could not figure it out no matter how he thought about it. You broke through? Xiaochen asked softly as he walked over. Lin Feng nodded and stared at Xiaochen for a while. Then he said, "You seem to be somewhat different." Xiaochen did not deny it. His soul energy had reached three-vein sovereign emperor. Even if Xiaochen did not do it on purpose, Lin Feng could feel the pressure. It was just like when Xiaochen faced Luo Howang back then. When Luo Howang stood beside Luo Howang, Lin Feng could feel the pressure unless Luo Howang purposely withdrew his soul energy. However, doing so was very tiring. It was like pretending to be thin despite being a fatso. Reaching three-vein sovereign emperor's soul energy was still somewhat exaggerated. Xiaochen did not intend to tell Lin Feng. He nodded and said, "Yes, the divine nature flame is even more extraordinary than I imagined." Lin Feng understood. So that was the case. Then he said, "That is natural. After all, you are an ancient demonic sovereign, a bona fide true god. Congratulations." Xiaochen nodded slightly, and confidence appeared in his eyes. It looks like we guessed right. The underworld god guards do indeed have a new target, and have no time to care about us. However, with our current strength, even if we walk out openly, we do not have to worry about them surrounding us. Whoosh! With their strength improving, the two felt very confident of charging out of the final blood battlefield. Just at this moment, a flash of scarlet flame entered the two's vision. The demon blood vulture had returned. Xiaochen frowned slightly. Then he looked at Lin Feng and said, "The demon blood vulture said that it sensed from afar that the underworld god guards are fighting with someone. It seems like the battle is very intense." Lin Feng immediately felt interested. He said coldly, "Let's go and take a look. The enemies of the underworld god guards are our friends." That's what I was thinking. In reality, the two wanted to teach the underworld god guards a lesson. Given Xiaochen and Lin Feng's characters, they had been chased miserably for more than a month, stuck in the final blood battlefield, unable to leave. How could they let them off so easily? If there was an opportunity, they would definitely make a move to take revenge. Chapter 2203. Xiaochen's soul energy reached the level of a three-vein sovereign emperor, and his divine energy successfully opened a divine vein. Now, Xiaochen really wanted to see who was fighting the underworld god guards. Lin Feng, who was at the side, said sullenly, "The underworld god guards are the backbone of the underworld god hall. They are somewhat similar to the Heavenly Alliance's members. In order to become an underworld god guard, one needs to be a sovereign emperor. This kind of elite force usually won't interfere in secular matters. Most of them are here to deal with the righteous path super forces." Xiaochen was deep in thought. "Are you saying that they might be attacking the mystic light sex saint?" Lin Feng nodded. "It's very likely. As for whether it's true or not, We'll know once we go over and take a look. The two gently pushed off the ground and landed on the demon blood vulture's back. Then, they quickly flew towards the place where the incident occurred. The demon blood vulture moved very fast in this final blood battlefield. Furthermore, it was a demonic beast. In this battlefield, Xiao Chun and Lin Feng were on its back, which could achieve the effect of deceiving others. Outsiders only knew that it was a demonic creature flying over, but they didn't know that Xiao Chun and his companion were also on it. Boom! Suddenly, a dazzling white ray of sword light erupted 500,000 kilometers ahead, and it illuminated the heavens and the earth as if it was daytime. Lin Feng was slightly startled. It looks like there is an 80 to 90% chance that it is that group from the profound light Holy Land. This was clearly the Light Dao domain. Previously, when Wenring Yu attacked Luoho Wang, the mysterious phenomenon was similar to this. Let's go take a look. The demon blood vulture accelerated, continuously flying closer. Sword hums sounded like flute music in the surroundings. The piercingly cold sword wind blew over from afar, causing people to feel a slight chill on their bodies. What a strong sword intent. Before we even get close to his Dao domain, the sword light he emits already makes it hard to approach. Lin Feng frowned slightly. With a thought, traces of black death qi emanated from his body. However, when the formless sword intent intertwined with the aura of death on his body, it was as if the sword intent was invisible. There was a hissing sound as the sword intent wrapped around Lin Feng's death qi, corroding his death qi. Lin Feng was greatly startled. His death Dao domain was very strong, aside from the life Dao domain. He had never suffered such a loss. His death qi was actually being corroded by someone else. Even when Xiao Chun layered his 3 Dao domains, he could barely block the death Dao's Dao might. Xiao Chun's eyes lit up as he glanced over. What a familiar sword light. Don't care about the demon blood vulture. The two of us will go over first. A trace of anticipation appeared in Xiao Chun's heart. He gently leaped up and unexpectedly flew over alone against the sword wind. Whoosh! A figure followed closely behind. It was Lin Feng. He was very curious about when such an expert had appeared in the profound light Holy Land, so he quickly followed. After a short while, the two of them landed on a mountain peak and stopped. If one went any further, it would be the Dao domain of that group of underworld god guards and the mysterious expert. Once one entered, one would definitely be dragged into a huge battle. Thousands of mysterious phenomena appeared in front of Xiao Chun, looking like demons dancing wildly. Xiao Chun could see close to 20 underworld god guards. He dashed about in all directions, executing all sorts of killing moves. Demonic qi surged like a boundless ocean. The person in the middle held a sword, not flustered at all. His body gave off a slightly chaotic light, dodging the killing moves. However, when he attacked, a 30-kilometer-long sword light tore through the sky, howling in all directions and illuminating the world. One sword light illuminated the 9 provinces. This person showed a smile on his face. Despite being surrounded by close to 20 underworld god guards, he still remained calm. With a sword in hand, he used the least amount of energy to defend himself, making it an impenetrable defense. What exquisite sword techniques! Who is this person? He does not look like someone from the profound light Holy Land. Lin Feng felt somewhat surprised. This person's light Dao domain was terrifyingly strong. He managed to suppress all these underworld god guards, who cultivated demonic Dao techniques, all by himself. Unexpectedly, this person was not from the profound light Holy Land. He looked very unfamiliar. Chu Chaoyan. Indeed it is him, Xiao Chun muttered to himself. When he saw that sword light earlier, he found it somewhat familiar. Now that he saw this person's face clearly, if it was not Chu Chaoyan, who else could it be? Xiao Chun could not help revealing a smile. He sighed ruefully in his heart. After parting in the Kunlun realm, if he counted the time in the faux god world, it had been more than 20 years since they last met. 20 years passed quickly. Chu Chaoyan still looked as elegant as before. You know him? Lin Feng looked at Xiao Chun, finding it strange. Xiao Chun sighed softly. It's not just knowing him. It was not just knowing him. Xiao Chun's grudge with Chu Chaoyan had been entangled ever since he left Mo City. In the Sky Dome realm, in the Kunlun realm, The two were friends and enemies at the same time. Xiao Chun gave the other party the divine item that the Tianwu emperor left behind and personally let the other party leave the abandoned land. The word acquaintance simply could not describe all the things that happened. Go and save him. It looks like these underworld god guards are just delaying, waiting for reinforcements. This is for you. With a glance, there were close to 20 underworld god guards. Even with Xiao Chen's current strength, he would not have any hope of victory against so many sovereign emperors. At best, he could leave calmly. While Chu Chaoyan did not seem to be at a disadvantage, in reality, he could not escape. The 20 underworld god guards formed a killing formation, avoiding the battle and surrounding Chu Chaoyan without attacking. Clearly, they wanted to exhaust Chu Chaoyan's divine energy and soul energy, waiting for stronger reinforcements to arrive. This is a medial-grade soul tool? Lin Feng casually received the secret treasure that Xiao Chen gave him. At first, he did not pay much attention to it. After checking it out, he exclaimed, "The Qiongqi Beast Ghost Pennant." This was one of the 3 medial-grade soul tools that the Scarlet Blood Pirate King left behind. Soul tools were also known as soul treasures. Only rank 6 sects could possess them. An inferior-grade soul tool was sufficient to form the foundation of a rank 6 sect. Medial-grade soul tools were something only rank 7 sects could possess. Even the sovereign emperors of superfactions rarely had inferior-grade soul tools. Medial-grade soul tools were even rarer. That was not all. When Xiao Chen took out the god Shadow Bow, Lin Feng felt somewhat stupefied. Another medial-grade soul tool. Xiao Chen, you really hit it deeply. Lin Feng sighed deeply. Then he said somewhat helplessly, "If you had taken out such a trump card earlier, we would not have ended up in such a sorry state." As Xiao Chen fiddled with the god Shadow Bow, he said indifferently, "One should not flaunt one's wealth. If I had taken out this soul tool earlier, I might have attracted some trouble. Furthermore, when I first advanced to Sovereign Emperor, I could bring out only 40% of this medial-grade soul tool's might. What about now?" Xiao Chen replied softly, "Saving him comes first." As Xiao Chen spoke, he drew the bowstring. In the past, he could only draw it slightly. At this moment, the bowstring was easily drawn into the shape of a full moon. The soul energy in the divine seal drained like a flood. However, Xiao Chen did not find this unbearable. When the conditions were right, success would follow. When the bow was drawn into the shape of a full moon, the entire bow shone with a hazy red light, looking like blood about to drip out. A baleful aura spread out from the bow, making the entire sky tremble. This slender bowstring stirred the winds and clouds. When the heart flame spread out on the arrow, a baleful aura spread out. Behind Xiao Chen, the boundless momentum, the mountains, rivers, grass, trees, and demonic chi for 5,000 kilometers around seemed to stir. The underworld god guards surrounding Chu Chaoyan all felt their hearts skip a beat, a strange horror spreading in their hearts. For some reason, they felt like the Grim Reaper was approaching. 1 foot in the gates of hell. Danger! Quickly scatter! Someone shouted, and the 20-odd underworld god guards gave up on Chu Chaoyan at the same time, scattering. Whoosh! However, it was too late. The instant Xiao Chen released his hand, he could not see the arrow's trajectory at all. Nearly the instant Xiao Chen released his hand, an underworld god guard got struck. His physical body exploded on the spot, and his soul perished. His boundless life force vanished in 1 second. Immemorial Qiongqi Beast, Great Desolate Ian's Rage. On the other side, Lin Feng used his Death Great Dao to activate the Qiongqi Beast Ghost Pennant. It produced an unimaginably horrifying might. A gigantic Qiongqi Beast image charged out of the pennant, carrying the rage of the Great Desolate Ian that could destroy the world. It instantly knocked back a group of underworld god guards, and made them vomit blood. The underworld god guards' souls trembled, and their physical bodies nearly turned into meat paste. Their hovering bodies wobbled, unable to stand stably. Whoosh! 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 Xiao Chen followed up with more force, firing 3 arrows in a row, killing a martial emperor with each arrow. Whoosh! After continuously drawing the god Shadow Bow to a full moon and shooting 4 arrows in one breath, Xiao Chen found this somewhat taxing, so he let out a long breath. However, Xiao Chen revealed a smile on his face, not showing any fatigue at all. Clearly, Xiaochen did this with ease, not injuring himself at all. In the past, when he used the God Shadow Bow, he would only injure the enemy 1,000 times, but himself 800 times. Soul energy. This was the strength of a three-vein sovereign emperor's soul energy. On the other side, Lin Feng was laughing maniacally as he held the Qiongqi Ghost Streamer. As he wielded the Qiongqi Beast Ghost Pennant, he was pleasantly surprised to discover that his Death Dao domain was unexpectedly easy to wield with this medial-grade soul tool. He even managed to activate the Great Desolate Aeon's rage hidden in the Qiongqi Beast Ghost Pennant, controlling the ferocious beast image to charge around, flustering the remaining underworld god guards. Although it was not as shocking as the God Shadow Bow's one-arrow kill, its might was even greater when it continued to attack. None of the remaining 10-odd sovereign emperors managed to escape. At the foot of the mountain, Chu Chaoyan felt suspicious. When he looked up, he happened to meet Xiaochen's gaze. In an instant, the gazes of the two of them met even though they were separated by 10,000 li. After a while, the two smiled at each other. Many emotions and all sorts of emotions were unspoken. Chapter 2204. Chu Chaoyan recognized Xiaochen. He was slightly taken aback, and involuntarily recalled the past. For a moment, the past slowly unfolded like a scroll in Chu Chaoyan's mind. Lin Feng used the Qiongqi Beast Ghost Pennant to torture the remaining 10-odd sovereign emperors, making them suffer a fate worse than death. The Qiongqi Ghost, which was already extremely terrifying, was actually triggered by Lin Feng's primal chaos rage. Traveling through time and space, the rage of the Great Desolate Aeon from the distant Great Desolate Aeon landed on the body of the Qiongqi Beast. It was like a Great Desolate Aeon ferocious beast had returned to the mortal world. What was even more terrifying was that it also contained the profound of death. It could extinguish all life and devour everything. Kill him. When these underworld god guards saw that they could not leave, they found it hard to advance or retreat. Coincidentally, he saw that Chu Chaoyan was in a daze. Immediately he hardened his heart. Since he couldn't leave anyway, he couldn't. Now that Chu Chaoyan had revealed an opening, they would strike together and kill him. Kill. The 10-odd sovereign emperors used various killing moves at the same time, charging at Chu Chaoyan. Instantly the world turned dark. The dense demonic qi dyed the sky pitch black, and not a single ray of light could be seen. The demonic Dao veritable essence energy was tyrannical, untamed, and unrestrained. When the 10-odd sovereign emperors attacked at the same time, it brought out its full potential. Every single underworld god guard's Dao domain was as terrifying as an endless purgatory. The flame Dao domain was black, and vengeful spirits roared angrily as vengeful spirits roared. The ice Dao domain was blood red, and the ice spread out like fresh blood. It was unknown how many martial artists' blood it had refined, making it seem sinister and terrifying. The various Dao domains were supported by the divine seals, layered over each other. The ruthlessness of the attacks left everyone flabbergasted. These underworld god guards were prepared to kill Chu Chaoyan regardless of anything else. Even if they had to endure a frontal attack from Qiongqi, they had to kill Chu Chaoyan. While he was in a daze, he didn't give him any chance. It had to be said that these people had grasped the perfect opportunity. With Chu Chaoyan's temperament, he wouldn't have made such a big mistake if he hadn't seen an old friend. Oh no, your friend was too careless. Lin Feng could not help feeling anxious when he saw the situation. How could one be careless when fighting sovereign emperors? Even if they were a group of sovereign emperors severely injured by the Qiongqi Beast's ghost, they were still sovereign emperors. Not to mention a sovereign emperor, even if it was a fight between regular cultivators, the slightest opening could result in death. Now Xiaochen exposed his weakness to 10-odd sovereign emperors. He had been too careless. Xiaochen frowned slightly. He wanted to warn Chu Chaoyan, but it was already too late. Without saying a word, Xiaochen took out the God Shadow Bow and knocked another arrow. Then he infused all his soul energy into it. However, it was still too late. The killing moves of the 10-odd sovereign emperors instantly encased Chu Chaoyan, preventing him from dodging. When Chu Chaoyan came to his senses, he smiled. Still not flustered, He turned around and began to perform incantation gestures with his left hand. As his fingers moved, incomparably mysterious divine characters spread out from his body and surrounded him. When the 10-odd Sovereign Emperor's killing moves landed, a sword light flew out unhurriedly. Boundless primal chaos, heaven-splitting sword. Boom. When this sword light appeared, a loud sound came from Chu Chaoyun's body. The ground within 500,000 kilometers trembled. In the next moment, the sword light released a dazzling light. A sword intent even more ancient than the great desolate Aeon spread out. The 10-odd sovereign emperors paused before the ancient sword intent's intimidation. It felt like time and space froze. They were clearly in front of Chu Chaoyun, but they could not get close. As long as they landed their killing moves, Chu Chaoyun's Tao would disappear. However, they could not land their killing moves on him. By the time the 10-odd sovereign emperors could move again, they vomited a mouthful of blood. The sword light knocked them into the air, a huge hole in their chests. Whoosh! Nearly at the same time, Xiaochen unleashed his full power with an arrow. A sovereign emperor exploded on the spot. However, that was not all. The shock waves from the arrow, which contained heart flame, spread out. Boom! The other sovereign emperors were blasted into pieces, a cruel sight to behold. Then the Qiongqi beast ghost pennant charged over, carrying the rage of the great desolate Aeon. Miserable shrieks rang out. Most of the nearly 20 sovereign emperors died on the spot, leaving only 4 sovereign emperors. The remaining 4 sovereign emperors seemed to have gone berserk and fled, not caring about anything else. Xiaochen did not want to leave behind any future problems. He also did not want to expose his 2 medial-grade soul tools as his trump cards, so he overdrew on his soul energy. Xiaochen fired another 4 arrows. The 4 sovereign emperors, who were already startled by the mere twang of a bowstring and suffered many rounds of severe injuries, all died, leaving none alive. After putting away the bow, Xiaochen felt like his head would explode. He stumbled and fell from the summit. The demon blood vulture moved quickly, turning into a beam of red light, and catching the falling Xiaochen. Bang! After landing heavily, Xiaochen patted his head and shook his head. Even if you have the soul energy of a 3-vein sovereign emperor, you should not play like this. This is too scary. The arrow that Xiaochen shot to save Chu Chaoyun drained nearly all his veritable essence energy and soul energy. Then he overdrew on his soul energy to shoot 4 more arrows. If he were an ordinary person, he would have fainted long ago. In the end, sovereign emperors were still too difficult to kill. Even with the 2 medial-grade soul tools that the Scarlet Blood Pirate King left behind, and an absolute advantage, it was still difficult for sovereign emperors who had not opened divine veins. This time, if Lin Feng had not accidentally activated the Qiongqi Beast Ghost Pennant's Great Desolate Aeon Rage, his Death Great Tao, and the terrifying might of Chu Chaoyun's final sword strike, it would have been nearly impossible for Lin Feng to kill these nearly 20 sovereign emperors. It would have been nearly impossible for Lin Feng to kill these nearly 20 sovereign emperors. This is too much. 20 underworld god guards died. The underworld god hall will definitely send out the underworld god protectors. Lin Feng felt flabbergasted. He had thought of charging back to the underworld god hall to take revenge for his junior sister. However, he had never thought that a 1-vein sovereign emperor could kill 10-odd underworld god guards. The Underworld God Hall gathered the outstanding talents of the 9 layers of the abyssal underworld. Each underworld god guard was nurtured with a vast amount of resources. Losing 20 of them at once would definitely incur the wrath of the elders. A sovereign emperor, even an ordinary sovereign emperor, was a huge fortune. However, it was fortunate that these were not elite underworld god guards. Otherwise, they might have attracted the attention of the first elder. Although Lin Feng said that, he still directed Qiongqi's ghost to absorb the souls of these underworld god guards. A sovereign emperor's soul was a great supplement to the ghost pennant's refinement. He found himself falling in love with the Qiongqi ghost streamer. It was as if it was tailor-made for him. With the help of the Qiongqi beast ghost pennant, the Death Dao domain brought out a might that even Xiaochen did not expect. On the other side, the demon blood vulture carried Xiaochen to Chu Chaoyun. Chu Chaoyun's condition was not very good. That streak of sword light seemed to have been completely drained of his soul power and true essence. Congratulations. You seem to have touched the threshold of the primal chaos Dao domain. In that final sword strike, Xiaochen could tell that although Chu Chaoyan had not comprehended the primal chaos Dao domain yet, he had touched the boundary of the primal chaos Dao domain, and was extremely close. Chu Chaoyan smiled bitterly. That is easier said than done. I might not even be able to take half a step in my entire life. However, Chu Chaoyan raised his eyebrows and changed the topic. He smiled faintly and said, "After not seeing you for 20-odd years, I was wondering what your first words would be. Unexpectedly, it would be congratulations." Xiaochen could not help feeling flabbergasted. Could it be that I nearly lost my life because I was thinking about this earlier? What are you doing in the final blood battlefield? What are you doing in the final blood battlefield? After a moment of silence, the two spoke at the same time, asking in unison. You first. You first. Xiao Chun and Chu Chaoyan felt somewhat embarrassed. The second sentence was exactly the same. Xiao Chun and Chu Chaoyan did not know what to say. Let me say it. The two of you are really strange. Holding the Qiongqi Beast Ghost Pennant, Lin Feng appeared before the two. Then he said, he and I came to the Heavenly Alliance to carry out a mission. As for the contents of the mission, the Heavenly Alliance's rules state that we cannot divulge it. Xiaochen nodded and said, there were some twists and turns along the way. It is basically as Lin Feng said. Chu Chaoyan felt slightly stunned. Then he asked, finding this strange. Could it be that you are here to find the same thing as me? Xiao Chun and Lin Feng felt slightly stunned. They exchanged glances, finding this somewhat strange. Chu Chaoyan is here to find something as well? Take it out together. Let's see what everyone is looking for. All right. Everyone had their own thoughts. Xiao Chun took out the Heavenly Alliance holy relic, the cracked 7-color stone. Chu Chaoyan took out a key. Coincidentally, it was the ethereal immortal palace key. Chapter 2205. The Ethereal Immortal Palace Key. The ethereal immortal palace key in Chu Chaoyun's hand surprised Xiao Chun. This meant that Wenrenyu's group was here for the ethereal immortal palace key as well? You found this in the final blood battlefield? Xiao Chun asked softly as he looked at Chu Chaoyan. Chu Chaoyan nodded slightly and raised his eyebrows. He could tell what Xiao Chun was implying. You seem to know about the ethereal immortal palace key. Xiao Chun did not say anything. He took out the 2 ethereal immortal palace keys he had. The Peach Blossom Sovereign Emperor had given him one, and he was temporarily keeping the other for Yuan Jun. 2. One is mine, and I'm temporarily keeping the other for someone else. Lin Feng said, let's go first. This place is not safe. Right. The 3 soared into the air and mounted the demon blood vulture, quickly flying far away. Xiao Chun and Chu Chaoyan showed calm expressions, not showing any changes in their expressions. Only Lin Feng frowned slightly when he turned his head and looked at the 10-odd corpses on the ground. Lin Feng had stayed in the Underworld God Hall before, and knew how big of a matter it was for 10-odd Underworld God Guards to die. After the 3 left for 4 hours, Yan Songming and Zhen Yuan rushed over with a group of Underworld God Guards. When they saw the Underworld God Guards' corpses, their expressions changed drastically. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The group of Underworld God Guards behind very professionally stepped forward to check the corpses, their injuries and the cause of death, to see who could be saved. After a while, one of them stepped forward and said, Lord Yan, 18 Underworld God Guards are all dead. They died no more than 10 hours ago. There are sword wounds, lingering auras of the Death Dao domain, and arrow wounds. It seems like a demonic Dao expert used a ghost pennant as a sacrifice, leaving no souls behind. The injuries were all messy, not easy to analyze. Just thinking about it gave Yan Songming a headache. Yan Songming asked, Zhen Yuan, what kind of conditions do you think are needed to kill 20-odd Underworld God Guards? Zhen Yuan thought for a while before replying. At least a 3-vein Sovereign Emperor expert or stronger. They would have a suppressive advantage, unable to flee. However, this possibility is very small. 3-vein Sovereign Emperors and above can be considered great perfection Sovereign Emperors. The appearance of such enemies will not escape the underworld god hall's attention. Silence. No one at the scene spoke. Everyone's face was a little ugly. More than 10 sovereign emperors died. This was not an era of war. The underworld god hall rarely suffered such heavy casualties. Everyone knew that someone was going to be out of luck. Yen Songming said indifferently, "That's it then. Continue searching for Chu Chaoyan. I will report this and get the Vice Palace Master to send the Underworld God Protector to the final blood battlefield to receive us." Yes. When the others saw Yen Songming so calm, they felt confused. However, they still obeyed and scattered. Zhen Yuan said softly, "I thought that you would fly into a rage." Yen Songming's expression did not change as he said sullenly, "The ones who died were the Underworld God Hall's people. There were no Flood Dragon humans, so it has nothing to do with me. This problem cannot be blamed on me. A righteous Tao Great Perfection Sovereign Emperor must have sneaked in. The Underworld God Hall is at fault. What does it have to do with me?" Zhen Yuan felt slightly stunned. Then he understood that Yen Songming had made up his mind to push the blame to the Underworld God Hall's intelligence department. The demon blood vulture flew for half a day before stopping near the edge of the final blood battlefield. With the demon blood vulture guarding, Xiaochen and the other two circulated their energies with their eyes closed, recovering their exhausted divine energy and soul energy. Chu Chaoyan exhausted the least. 1 hour later, he was the first to open his eyes. Chu Chaoyan looked around and fixed his gaze on Xiaochen, who circulated his demonic Tao cultivation technique. A strange look flashed in his eyes as he thought to himself, "Dual cultivation of the demonic and righteous." To think that Xiaochen chose to dual cultivate. Those who took this path did not end up well. After a while, Xiaochen and Lin Feng opened their eyes one after another. "I'll go ahead and scout the way." Lin Feng entered deep thought. He knew that Xiaochen and Chu Chaoyan were old acquaintances, and would definitely have something to say to each other. After a while, Xiaochen and Chu Chaoyan started chatting casually. Naturally, the first thing they talked about was the ethereal immortal palace key. Xiaochen was very interested in this key. In Peach Blossom City, the profound heaven's holy son did his best to obtain the key. In the faux god world, Zhen Yuan did the same. Now Chu Chaoyan took the risk to come to the final blood battlefield for the same reason. Speaking of the ethereal immortal palace key, naturally, we have to talk about the ethereal immortal palace. Everyone is interested in the wings of time in the ethereal immortal palace. Xiaochen knew all this, so he gestured for Chu Chaoyan to continue. No one knows the exact location of the misty immortal palace. However, after the last demonic calamity, the misty immortal palace was located there. However, after the previous demonic calamity, every few thousand years, a diviner would swear that the ethereal immortal palace would appear. At the very beginning, it would attract the experts of the righteous Tao and demonic Tao of the entire Great Thousand Realms. However, they would return empty-handed every time. As time passed, everyone became indifferent to it. Furthermore, even if the ethereal immortal palace appears and we gather all 7 keys, it will be useless without the inheritance key. Chu Chaoyan paused for a moment before continuing. It is the same this time. The top diviners of the 4 dynasties, the Tianwu dynasty, the Shenwu dynasty, the Yanwu dynasty, and the Xiuwu dynasty, prophesied that the ethereal immortal palace will appear again. Xiaochen suddenly understood. So whether it was true or not, the 4 dynasties had to make a move. After careful thought, Zhen Yuan's hidden spirit temple represented the Yanwu dynasty. The profound heaven's holy son, Wenrenyu, represented the Shenwu dynasty. In addition, Chu Chaoyan represented the Tianwu dynasty. Chu Chaoyan smiled and said, "It looks like you thought of it as well. Although the prophecy is not accurate, it concerns the wings of time. The 3 dynasties have to make a move. Hence, they sent people like us to collect keys. This key of mine was snatched from Wenrenyu's hands." Xiaochen said after some thought, "I still do not understand. What is the point of obtaining this key? If we cannot find the inheritance key, it will be useless." Chu Chaoyan smiled faintly and said, "Yes, it is indeed useless. However, with 1 key, one has the capital to compete for the ethereal immortal palace. Those without keys do not even have the qualifications. Hence, they still have to compete for it. Even if they know that it is useless, once they obtain it, they will have the capital to keep each other in check. Xiaochen was not stupid. With just a hint from Chu Chaonan, he figured out the principle. There were only 2 words: keeping each other in check and grasping the initiative. Without a key, one would be in a much more passive position if one wanted to compete for the ethereal immortal palace. Chu Chaoyan took a sip of wine and suddenly said, "Actually, I know some information about the inheritance key. Speaking of which, it has something to do with your dragon race." Oh, Xiaochen felt slightly startled. This piqued his interest. Speaking of which, only the blood-soaked dragon emperor truly used the wings of time. Actually, it was not surprising that the inheritance key had something to do with the dragon race. It is rumored, just rumored, that only one person knows the location of the inheritance key. That person is someone from your dragon race. When Xiaochen heard that, a person immediately appeared in his mind. He could not help saying, "The previous generation heaven dragon." Chu Chaoyan nodded and said, "That's right, that's him. Rumor has it that the purple gold dragon emperor did not kill the previous generation heaven dragon because he wanted to force out the inheritance key's location. Unfortunately, there does not seem to be any results. The tragic scene of the previous generation heaven dragon being imprisoned in the Starry Heavens dragon prison appeared in Xiaochen's mind. It was not just the physical body, but also the soul that suffered constant torture. Now that Xiaochen put it that way, it did seem like a method to force the previous generation heaven dragon to submit. Chu Chaoyan smiled and said, "Let's not talk about this for now. How did you survive after leaving the Kunlun realm?" "Me? That's a long story." When Xiaochen thought back to how he left the Kunlun realm and got to where he was today step by step, he found it incredibly difficult. First, he wandered the outer realm for 5 years. During that period, he faced so many trials and dangers that he could not even count. After he entered the central Great Realm, he had settled down in the Heaven Dragon Palace. In the end, he was chased out in a sorry state. Fortunately, he had advanced to Sovereign Emperor now. Everything was over. However, Xiaochen did not know when Lu Ruyue could truly tell him the truth. After giving a rough account of his experiences, Xiaochen said, "Let's talk about you. I'm more curious about how you managed to survive these years." Chu Chaoyan smiled and said, "I was slightly luckier. I have the bloodline of the Tianwu dynasty's royal clan. The moment I left the Kunlun realm, the Tianwu dynasty's old ancestor sensed my bloodline wandering outside. The 4 dynasties attach great importance to the royal clan's bloodline. Once they discover a royal clan disciple wandering outside, they will do their best to find him. I only wandered for a year before I was brought back. My bloodline was verified, and I was recognized as a descendant. Then my name was written in the clan records. Later, I learned that the prince who came to the Kunlun realm in a fit of pique was actually an incredible existence. After he left the Kunlun realm, he actually returned to the Tianwu dynasty and became the emperor. He even became the universe origin sect's palace master." Xiaochen knew that Chu Chaoyan was referring to the Kunlun realm's first-generation Tianwu emperor. "Then have you ever thought about taking revenge?" Chu Chaoyan shook his head and said, "That fellow died long ago. He ran into a bad era. He was a genius, but he could not become a true god. Now that group of old fellows from the royal clan thinks that I will be a second Xiaochen. The resources they give me are practically limitless. Speaking of which, it is really funny. I clearly hate that fellow to death. However, he is now my most hated enemy." When Xiaochen heard this, he could not help but turn silent. Fate was fickle. It really liked to play tricks on people. Chu Chaoyan had worked hard in the Kunlun realm for his entire life. He wanted to charge out and ask that fellow, who left without caring about the destruction of the Kunlun realm's Tianwu dynasty, why was he so heartless? However, who knew, the first-generation Tianwu emperor had died long ago. Now, because Chu Chaoyan had the first-generation Tianwu emperor's bloodline, and came from the same realm, he ended up being treated as the person he hated the most. However, Chu Chaoyan could not explain this to anyone. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. A figure flashed, and Lin Feng returned. He said sullenly, "We have to leave tonight. Otherwise, when the underworld god protectors charge over, it will be hard for us to escape." Chapter 2206. Nether God Protector? Lin Feng could tell that Chu Chaoyan and Xiao Chun were confused. He explained simply, "The god of the underworld is a kind of faith. It is the supreme being that the 9 great underworld worships together. The god of the underworld's protector is equivalent to a god in the underworld. They are seen as the underworld god's personal guards. They possess horrifying strength, at least as strong as 4 vain sovereign emperors." Chu Chaoyan had a pensive look on his face. "Is it because 18 underworld god guards died?" Lin Feng nodded. "That's right. The death of so many underworld god guards will definitely shake the entire underworld god hall. Normally, when such a situation occurs, the vice palace master will personally send the underworld god protector to handle it. Right now, the vice palace master is the one in charge of the final blood battlefield." Xiao Chun said, "They shouldn't have come so quickly." Lin Feng said with a grave expression, "As long as Yen Songming sends the message and the underworld god hall confirms it, the underworld god protector will need only 2 hours to be sent to the final blood battlefield." Xiao Chun and Chu Chaoyan immediately felt the seriousness of the matter. The sky of the 9th netherworld is filled with underworld god hall Dao platforms. A forbidden land like the final blood battlefield is no exception. Hence, we can only leave the final blood battlefield while Yen Songming sends the message, and the other party confirms it. Lin Feng sighed softly. "I only hope that the underworld god hall will take as long as possible. I took a look earlier. The final blood battlefield is already sealed. Only people can leave, not enter. Those who go out have to undergo strict interrogation. It's almost impossible to leave without making a sound." Chu Chaoyan said, "There's no time to lose. Let's kill our way out. There's no need to think too much. The longer one remains in the final blood battlefield, the more dangerous it is." Xiao Chen's and Chu Chaoyan's missions could be considered completed. They had both found what they wanted to take. There was no longer any need to remain in the final blood battlefield. What Xiao Chen needed to do now was leave quickly. Go. The 3 were decisive people. After confirming this, they did not hesitate to head to the edge of the final blood battlefield. Soon, Xiao Chen saw 3 people wearing underworld god guard uniforms rushing over from the sky. These underworld god guards were very cautious. They stopped far away and shouted, "Halt! The final blood battlefield is already sealed. If you want to leave, state your identity first." Xiao Chen released his demonic aura and shouted, "Friend, we are a group of rogue cultivators. We have no way to prove our identities. Might I know what matter the lords of the underworld god guards have with me? Could we speak in private?" When the 3 underworld god guards saw the demonic Dao baleful aura on Xiao Chun, they relaxed somewhat. However, they still said ruthlessly, "Since you cannot prove your identity, please remain in the final blood battlefield. The underworld god hall will not kill the innocent." Xiao Chun and the other 2 exchanged glances and frowned slightly. These underworld god guards seemed to have received the news. All of them became extremely cautious and did not approach Xiao Chen's group of 3. They only shouted at them from afar. If the 3 made any strange movements, the underworld god guards would immediately raise their guard and inform all the nearby underworld god guards. When Xiao Chen saw the situation, he said softly, "My god Shadow Bao can instantly kill 1 person." Lin Feng entered deep thought. After thinking for a while, he said, "This is too far. If I control the Qiongqi Beast Ghost Pennant, I can only guarantee severely injuring 1 person. I might not be able to kill them." Chu Chaoyan shook his head and said, "That won't do. As long as 1 person does not die, the underworld god guards rushing over might delay us. At that time we will be in trouble." "What should we do then?" Chu Chaoyan smiled faintly and said, "Trick them into coming over." Right after speaking, Chu Chaoyan shouted, "Lords, they do not have any identity. I have the identity token of a rank 7 Moon Demon Palace. Can that serve as proof?" Three blurry figures in the distance whispered to each other in the hazy demonic fog. After a while, three figures approached from afar, slowly becoming clearer before Xiao Chen's group. However, just as the three approached, they stopped. The leader of the underworld god guard said indifferently, "Remove the conical bamboo hat on your head and give me the identity token to verify its authenticity. After that, we will release them." Chu Chaoyan did not say anything. He tossed a jade bottle over. The person in the middle caught the jade bottle and frowned slightly. When he opened it, he discovered that it was origin liquid. Origin liquid? What does that mean? Boom. However, the reply to that person was a strike from Xiao Chen's group of three after storing up power. A peak strike from each of them. Xiao Chen flicked his finger and executed the fiendish saber inheritance's water droplet, breaking the firmament. A drop of water containing all of Xiao Chen's fiendish saber quintessence instantly struck the leader. Chu Chaoyan's sword moved as fast as a fleeting shadow. In a flash, it pierced the forehead of the person on the left. Lin Feng stretched out his hand, and the Death Dao domain turned into a beam of black light that instantly pierced the chest of the person on the right. Ignoring these three, Xiao Chen's group's figures flashed as they quickly fled far away. Puse. The three underworld god guards suddenly suffered severe injuries. Before they could send a message, they instantly fell into dire straits. They quickly tried to save themselves, unable to care about Xiao Chen's group. 1 hour later, the three successfully walked out of the final blood battlefield. Then, they turned their heads to look at the final blood battlefield. And released their bated breaths. Lin Feng said, "Those three should not die. However, they can't even protect themselves. They will not be able to send a message immediately. We should take this opportunity to go as far away as we can." Right. The three disguised themselves and suppressed their cultivations. Then, they moved about the abyssal underworld cities, heading for the crack that led back to the central Great Realm. During this period, the three felt jittery at every city they went to. The city was heavily guarded. Underworld god guards appeared nearly everywhere. Underworld god guards would not easily appear before ordinary cultivators. Since they appeared so frequently, something major clearly happened. In a few days, news of the final blood battlefield spread throughout the entire abyssal underworld. Now, all the cultivators in the abyssal underworld knew of a sovereign emperor expert called the Heavenly Alliance's Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen had single-handedly killed 10-odd sovereign emperors of the righteous Dao and demonic Dao, snatching away the divine nature flame of an ancient demonic sovereign. Xiao Chen's reputation soared. It was even possible that the deaths of the 18 underworld god guards were related to him. The entire underworld god hall frantically searched for this Xiao Chen. After Xiao Chen's group carefully traveled for 8 days, they arrived at the banks of the underworld river. After crossing this river, they would basically be out of danger. They would need less than 1 day to leave the 9th layer of the abyssal underworld. At that time, they would be free to soar in the vast sky and swim in the vast sea. Even if the underworld god hall's 9 vain sovereign emperors gave chase, it would be useless. Given the strength of the Heavenly Alliance and the Universe Origin sect, they could send experts over at any time to provide reinforcements. After hiding for a few days, Xiao Chen's group was not used to it. They were bona fide sovereign emperors, peak experts no matter where they went. There was no need to feel so sullen, not even daring to reveal their cultivations. However, this was the underworld god hall's territory. No matter how sullen they felt, they had to endure it. As Xiao Chen's group looked at the surging, unending underworld river, they hid in the crowd, carefully waiting for the underworld boat to arrive. One could not fly across the underworld river. Even sovereign emperors had to ride the underworld boat. "It's coming," Lin Feng said softly. Xiao Chen looked up and saw an underworld boat steadily rowing over the surging Scarlet River. After reaching the riverbank, Xiao Chen's group joined the crowd and boarded the underworld boat. After entering the boat, the three felt much more relaxed. As they looked behind them at the distant 9th layer of the abyssal underworld, they felt deeply moved. After leaving the final blood battlefield, Xiao Chen and Chu Chaoyan realized how much trouble they had caused by killing 20 underworld god guards. The two felt like the underworld god guards were like shadows. Everywhere they went, there were underworld god hall experts searching the area. At all times, the three felt danger hovering above them, not daring to be careless. Even when they cultivated, the three took turns, allowing one person to remain absolutely awake, ready to fight at any moment. Everyone's heart was as taut as a string, and they could not relax. Now that the three boarded the underworld boat, and gradually left the 9th layer of the abyssal underworld, they could finally calm down. Strange. Why do I feel that the people on this boat are strange? Xiao Chen withdrew his gaze and looked at the cultivators on the boat. There were Yaksha, Asura, Rakshasa, and demonic Dao cultivators. They gathered in groups of 2s and 3s, speaking in soft voices. They did not seem any different from usual. However, at a glance it felt strange. Chu Chaoyan frowned slightly. Something is not right. These people seem to be looking at us. That's right. Xiao Chun and Lin Feng suddenly startled awake. They were shocked to discover that the demonic Dao cultivators, who were talking, had their backs to the three, or were resting with their eyes closed. All seemed to have an eye on them. They were clearly an ordinary group of people, but it was like they all had an eye at the back of their heads. As the two thought this, they could not help feeling their hair stand on end. The more they thought about it, the stranger it felt. Don't panic. Xiao Chen held back Lin Feng, who was about to make a move. Then he walked over to a Rakshasa cultivator and asked probingly, "This friend, I have something I would like to ask you." "Ha! What is there to ask? Do I have an eye at the back of my head?" "There is no need to ask. I can tell you that I do." That person did not have an eye. He chuckled, and right after he spoke, a vertical eye suddenly opened at the back of his head. Whoosh! At the same time, a vertical eye opened at the back of the head of everyone on the boat. The originally noisy underworld boat immediately turned strangely quiet. Aside from Xiao Qin, everyone else remained motionless. Only the vertical eye at the back of the head looked strangely at Xiao Chun and the others, seeming to be laughing. Die. Lin Feng, who was at the side, could no longer hold back. He directly attacked, landing a palm strike on the Rakshasa cultivator, who spoke to Xiao Qin. Boom. That Rakshasa cultivator exploded before turning into a clump of images and vanishing. In the next moment, the surroundings suddenly changed. The three appeared in a desolate plain. There was a formless suction under their feet, making it hard for the three to move, much to the point where they found it hard to move. Illusion. Chu Chaoyan's expression changed slightly. He said sullenly, "We entered someone's illusion Dao domain." The underworld god protectors. Among the underworld god protectors, there is a 4-vein sovereign emperor skilled in illusions. They still caught up to us. Lin Feng cursed softly. Then he looked around helplessly. The desolate plain stretched out as far as the eye could see. The sky was dark and gloomy, looking horrifying. The three could not see the end of the desolate plain. At this moment, not to mention the fact that they could not move their feet, even if they could move freely, they would not dare to do so. Xiao Chen entered deep thought. In his eyes, this desolate plain was somewhat different from what Lin Feng and Chu Chaoyan saw. In the eyes of Lin Feng and Chu Chaoyan, the desolate plain was the real desolate plain, perfect and flawless. However, in Xiao Chen's eyes, the desolate plain seemed somewhat unreal. The ground occasionally trembled, and black cracks flickered endlessly in space. Naturally, the reason was that the underworld god protector underestimated Xiao Chen's soul energy, which rivaled that of a 3-vein sovereign emperor. Whoosh! When those black cracks reappeared, Xiao Chen suddenly appeared. The 3 divine vein rings under the blue dragon divine seal in the spirit sea pool rippled. In the next moment, the blue dragon divine seal on Xiao Chen's forehead shot out a beam of light made of soul energy and struck the black crack. Bang! The illusion shattered like a mirror, and the 3 returned to reality. The 3 suddenly discovered that the underworld boat had sunk into the river. Ghostly hands passed through the river and tightly grabbed their ankles. Chu Chaoyan and Lin Feng sucked in a breath of cold air. If not for Xiao Chen breaking the illusion, the 3 would not have woken up after being dragged into the underworld river. Chapter 2207. Hey! Just at this moment, someone on the underworld boat exclaimed softly. Xiao Chen raised his eyebrows and saw a black-haired old man standing on the bow of the half-submerged underworld boat. This old man looked ugly with 2 horns on his head, the symbol of the Yiksha race. When Lin Feng saw this person, he felt slightly startled. Indeed, it is old eccentric Xiao, the 4-veined sovereign emperor who is the best at illusions among the underworld god protectors. Old eccentric Xiao held a scepter with a crystal gem embedded at the top. There was an eye hidden in the gem, looking very breathtaking. Xiao Chun and the other 2 struggled, trying to break the ghostly hands in the underworld river. Unfortunately, they could not break them all. Since they could not break them all, they could only allow the underworld boat to sink into the river. This old man discovered you 3 days ago, but did not make a move. Since I already made a move, how can I give you a chance to struggle free? These ghostly hands of the underworld river are resentful spirits that have been here for countless epochs. They cannot be broken. Lin Feng, you should be the clearest about this. Old eccentric Qiao showed a calm expression. His lips curled up in a cocky expression. Old eccentric Qiao had effortlessly captured the 3 alive. When he returned to the underworld god hall, he would definitely make a great contribution. The value of a dead person and a living person was completely different. This was especially so for Lin Feng, whom the vice palace master wanted captured alive. Damn it! After a while, the river water reached the 3's knees. The ghostly hands of the underworld river took advantage of the situation to climb up. And the tearing force became even more horrifying. It was not just their physical bodies. Xiao Chun and the other 2 felt like their souls were slowly being torn out by these ghostly hands. Stop struggling. Only this old man can save your lives. Obediently hand over your medial grade soul tools, and I will spare you from death. Old eccentric Qiao revealed a sinister smile as he continued. Xiao Chun, what should we do? I have heard of these ghostly hands of the underworld river. Once a righteous Tao Great Perfection's sovereign emperor fell into them and lost his life. Chu Chaoyun's face sank slightly. Clearly, he could not think of a good solution for now. If he comprehended the primal chaos Tao domain, he could erode all these ghostly hands of the underworld river. Unfortunately, the Tao domain was just 1 step away from the Tao domain. All other methods were useless. Lin Feng's entire body was emitting a thick deathly aura. He wanted to devour those ghostly hands, but the speed at which he devoured them could not keep up with the speed at which they appeared. Damn it! The underworld river, which flowed through the 9 abyssal realms, had already been refined by the underworld god hall. Normally, the underworld river ghost hand was not this terrifying. It must be old eccentric Qiao's doing. Lin Feng had once stayed in the underworld god hall and knew some secrets. Old eccentric Qiao smiled but did not say anything. The eye and the gem on the scepter in his hand flickered with a strange light, as if it was verifying Lin Feng's words. Although Xiao Chen did not have a high chance of victory against a 4-veined sovereign emperor in the first place, his chances could even be said to be slim. However, if he were to die in such a sullen manner, he would not be willing to accept it. That was especially true for old eccentric Qiao. He had not even done anything, yet he had already been reduced to such a sorry state. He was truly unwilling to accept this. Xiao Chen remained silent. He stared at the eyeball in the scepter, deep in thought. Chu Chaoyan and Lin Feng were thinking about how to deal with the problem before them. However, Xiao Chen had other thoughts. When did the 3 of them fall for the illusion? Is it possible that everything before us is still an illusion? Chu Chaoyan and Lin Feng had not experienced a heart tribulation before. However, Xiao Chen had. He knew about the existence of multi-layered illusions. Some illusion experts were especially skilled in this path. Illusions hid the environment. It was like a dream within a dream. One might think that one had woken up, but in reality, one was still dreaming. However, if it was not a dream, then Xiao Chen could not afford to gamble. Right now, the crux of the problem was, when did the 3 fall for the other party's illusion? Did they fall for the illusion when they entered the dock, or did they fall for the illusion when they boarded the underworld boat? Xiao Chen had always felt that, given the 3's strength, they could not have fallen for the other party's trick without a sound. They must have triggered some kind of medium. Damn it! In the end, they relaxed when they saw the underworld river. Xiao Chen could not recall many of the details. Alright, I promise you. I can hand over the soul tool to you, but you have to save our lives. Xiaochen said ferociously as he looked at old eccentric Xiao. Xiaochen. Chu Chaoyan and Lin Feng felt mildly startled. They did not know why Xiaochen suddenly gave up on begging for mercy. Shock immediately flashed in old eccentric Xiao's eyes. Then greed replaced it. Good. This old man was wondering why those 10-odd underworld god guards all died. I guessed right. Brat, you do indeed have a medial-grade soul tool. As long as you hand over the medial-grade soul tool, this old man will spare your life now. If you do not believe me, I can swear an oath to the underworld god. Lin Feng knows that we, the protectors who serve the underworld god, cannot go back on our oath. Xiaochen looked at Lin Feng. Lin Feng nodded and said, he is right. I am not asking you to spare our lives now. If you spare our lives now, you will still have to bring us back to the underworld god hall. What is the point? I want you to send us out of the netherworld. If you are willing, please swear an oath. Xiaochen said faintly as he gradually gained some confidence in his heart. Old eccentric Xiao's expression immediately changed. He said with a cold expression, little brat, you actually dare to negotiate with me. In that case, just wait for death. Wait for this old man to scoop up your floating corpses. It's not like I can't report back. Xiaochen smiled confidently and said, have you thought it through, senior? In that case, you will lose 2 medial-grade soul tools. With a thought, I can destroy the soul tools at any time. What? 2. Old eccentric Xiao's heart immediately thumped heavily. 1 medial-grade soul tool already made him somewhat unable to control himself. 2 medial-grade soul tools were simply too shocking. Xiaochen continued. You can calculate this deal yourself. 2 mid-grade soul tools in exchange for our lives. As for the underworld god hall, you have only failed in your duties. How much punishment can you receive? No matter how you look at it, this deal is a profit, a huge profit at that. Old monster Qiao was silent. His face was gloomy, and the eyeball hidden in the gem on the scepter was blinking at a much higher frequency. Alright, this old man agrees. The underworld god above. I swear to you right now that as long as he hands over 2 medial-grade soul tools, I am willing to let them out of the netherworld. If I go back on my oath, I will suffer the torment of the netherworld's flames for all eternity. Old eccentric Qiao finally made up his mind. He swore to the underworld god that he would let them go at the price of 2 medial-grade soul tools. No matter who it was, they would make the same decision as old eccentric Qiao in this transaction. In fact, even if there was only 1 medial-grade soul tool, he could let Xiaochen and the others go. This was because the price was too small. As long as they were not discovered, it would just be a breach of duty. However, Lin Feng felt that something was strange. He kept feeling that something was wrong, but he could not figure out what was wrong. A bright light flashed in Chu Chaoyan's eyes. He entered deep thought and seemed to understand something. I already swore. Toss out the soul tool, and I will let you go. Old eccentric Qiao shouted as he looked at Xiaochen. Xiaochen took out the god shadow bow but did not toss it out. He said, Senior, come and take it. I told you to toss it out, not hold it. Xiaochen mocked. What's wrong? Senior is a bona fide Fourvain sovereign emperor. You do not even have the courage to come and take the soul tool? When old eccentric Qiao saw the mocking look in Xiaochen's eyes, he could not help feeling slightly stunned. Then, he showed some mockery in his heart. This fellow is playing this game with me. He really does not know his limits. From the start to the end, I played him in circles. To think that he wants to gamble one last time. How laughable. Some pity appeared in old eccentric Qiao's heart. Perhaps the weak were just so laughable, truly lamentable. Alright, this old man will come and take it. I know what you are thinking. You think that this old man is skilled in illusions. My physical body might be weaker, but if you make a desperate counterattack, you might have a chance. Ha 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 ha. That's right. This old man's physical body cannot withstand severe injuries. However, this old man will walk over now. You can attack me as much as you want. Let's see who dies first. Remember, if you attack me, I will no longer have to worry about my oath. Old eccentric Qiao laughed maniacally as he walked over. His laughter was filled with confidence and arrogance as he walked over step by step. As old eccentric Qiao approached, the atmosphere turned somewhat tense. Lin Feng showed a grave expression, feeling somewhat worried. However, he did not know what he was worried about. Xiaochen appeared calm and collected. Chu Chaoyan, who was at the side, showed a smile. When old eccentric Qiao arrived before Xiaochen, and was only 3 steps away, he said indifferently, "Hand it over." Xiaochen handed the god shadow bow over and said with a smile, "Senior, take it." Old eccentric Qiao snorted coldly, and reached out to grab the god shadow bow. However, when he was about to take it, he discovered that Xiaochen did not let go. Old eccentric Qiao's expression changed slightly as he asked sullenly, "What do you mean? Do you really want to die that much?" Before old eccentric Qiao could finish speaking, something strange happened. Chu Chaoyan, who was at the side, suddenly attacked, piercing the crystal gem in old eccentric Qiao's scepter. Chapter 2208. In the time it took for a spark to fly, Chu Chaoyun's sword pierced through the eye in the gem on old eccentric Qiao's scepter. Kasi. In that instant, the surroundings shattered like a mirror, turning into countless shards. Then the scene before them changed again. Xiaochen's group returned to the underworld boat. However, the underworld boat had not sunk, and all the passengers were on board. It was like time flowed in reverse, returning to when Xiaochen went to test that Rakshasa cultivator. Furthermore, that Rakshasa cultivator still had his back to Xiaochen. However, this time, there was no strange vertical eye at the back of his head. Of course, what was even more different was that an old man appeared in front of Xiaochen. This old man grasped the god shadow bow with horror in his eyes. Who else could this Yiksha race old man be, but old eccentric Qiao? Whoosh! Old eccentric Qiao's earlier arrogance and confidence vanished. Horror flashed in his eyes for a moment. The instant Xiaochen looked at him, old eccentric Qiao let go and quickly fled far away. Boom! However, Xiaochen had planned this for so long. How could he let old eccentric Qiao leave so easily before old eccentric Qiao let go? Before old eccentric Qiao let go, a golden light flashed in Xiaochen's eyes. He instantly activated his great desolate divine eyes and blue dragon bloodline. What was supreme? In the entire world, only I am supreme. Xiaochen instantly executed the strongest move of the supreme dragon fist. 10,000 dragons gathered above his divine energy sea, and a vast and boundless 10,000 dragons picture appeared behind Xiaochen. The great desolate Aeon dragon might appeared. This punch displayed the tyranny of a sovereign ruler. Old eccentric Qiao could not dodge at all. Xiaochen's supreme dragon fist's strongest move struck him. Bang! This punch blasted a huge bloody hole in old eccentric Qiao's chest. What a horrifying fist might. The horrifying fist might carried old eccentric Qiao away as it crashed into many figures. Then, it dove into the underworld boat, and fell into the underworld river. What's going on? Damn it! Who hit me? It hurts. Why does it feel like I was dreaming? What a strong dragon might. How can there be such a horrifying dragon might in the abyssal underworld river? After old eccentric Qiao fell into the underworld river, the cultivators on the underworld boat felt like they had just woken up from a dream. They felt like they had just woken up from a dream, feeling somewhat confused. The people injured by old eccentric Qiao all howled in pain as they lay on the ground, dying from the pain. Xiaochen's dragon might had not scattered yet. The remnant might of the supreme dragon fist spread out in all directions in the warship's hold. The horrifying might deterred the various abyssal underworld cultivators from approaching. They all fled far away, not daring to remain in the warship's hold. What exactly is going on? Feng was to say too, was old, and was Feng. Chen was ss was. Chu Chaoyan revealed an expression of understanding. It was indeed so. He looked at Xiaochen and asked, "How did you think of this?" Xiaochen scattered his dragon might, but his great desolate Aeon bloodline did not. He said, "I suspected long ago that the first layer of the environment was a trap that this old eccentric Qiao laid. However, I could not figure out when I fell for his trick and entered an illusion, so I could not be sure. When he approached me, I was sure that I was still in an illusion. Otherwise, this old fellow would not have risked his life to come and take my soul tool alone. Old eccentric Qiao's illusion was hard to distinguish between real and fake. At that time, Xiaochen could not be sure that he was still in an illusion. However, once a person showed greed, they would definitely reveal an opening. Old eccentric Qiao was very smart. However, he did not know that Xiaochen had already seen through his tricks. All he needed was a final confirmation. Feeling confused, Lin Feng asked, "But why did he come over to take the god shadow bow?" Xiaochen explained calmly, "Because of greed and self-confidence. The medial grade soul tool made him blinded by greed. Furthermore, he was confident in his illusion Dao, so he thought that I would not be able to detect that it was still an illusion. However, the most important thing was that Brother Chu had shattered his illusion. Even if I made a move back then, I would still be in an illusion and would not be able to injure his true body. Hence, I was betting on whether Brother Chu could break his illusion or not. Otherwise, only death awaits you." When Lin Feng heard that, he felt shocked in his heart. This Xiaochen was really bold. Not only was Lin Feng betting on whether old eccentric Qiao would fall for it or not, but he was also betting on whether Chu Chaoyan could detect the opening. However, Lin Feng was in awe of Xiaochen and Chu Chaoyan's tacit understanding. Even without any communication, they could cooperate so perfectly. Once there was a voice projection in the illusion, the other party would hear it. Lin Feng asked, "Xiaochen, why did you take out the god shadow bow in the illusion realm? Why did you take it out in reality as well?" Xiaochen replied softly, "I do not know much about the illusion Dao. However, I know that illusion Dao experts all have a skill that can turn the illusory into reality. As long as old eccentric Qiao wills it, he can materialize whatever we do in the illusion in reality. It is like he is controlling us. What is real and what is fake and what is real. Some people might not even realize that they have been controlled by illusions for their entire lives. Others might not even notice anything strange." Chu Chaoyan asked, "When did we fall for the illusion?" Xiaochen replied sullenly, "If I guessed right, we all fell for it the moment the vertical eye appeared on the back of those people's heads. Earlier, we felt that the ship was strange, probably because old eccentric Qiao was secretly trying to find the opening in our minds." Lin Feng's face sank slightly. He said with some lingering fear, "What a terrifying illusion. It is really hard to guard against. What should we do now?" A ruthless look flashed in Xiaochen's eyes as he said coldly, "Let's wait for that old thing to come up. If I guessed right, he will appear the moment my great desolate Ian bloodline vanishes." Chu Chaoyan and Lin Feng felt slightly stunned before they reacted. Old eccentric Qiao was a four-vein sovereign emperor. Even if he was only skilled in illusions, he was still a bona fide four-vein sovereign emperor. Although Xiaochen's earlier strike was horrifying, it could not truly injure old eccentric Qiao's foundation. Even without using illusions, old eccentric Qiao could suppress the three as a four-vein sovereign emperor. The danger was not completely resolved. However, compared to when they were in the illusion, Xiaochen's group now had more initiative against the severely injured old eccentric Qiao. Whoosh! Xiaochen had clearly said that he would only attack after old eccentric Qiao came up. Right after he spoke, he drew the bowstring and opened the heavenly eye on his forehead. Immediately, the heavenly eye pierced through the river and revealed old eccentric Qiao charging up. A divine image appeared in the sky above the underworld river. As Xiaochen plucked the bowstring, the world shook. A divine sound reverberated as Xiaochen released the bowstring. The arrow silently entered the underworld river. Bang! In the next moment, the underworld river exploded, and a scarlet wave soared into the clouds. A figure on the top of the wave let out a miserable shriek. The shriek was sharp and terrifying, echoing over the surging underworld river. "Xiaochen, this old man will make you die without a burial." It turned out that although old eccentric Qiao had sunk to the bottom of the river, he still knew everything on the underworld boat. He had heard everything Xiaochen said. Old eccentric Qiao smiled coldly in his heart. He wanted to catch Xiaochen off guard and beat him at his own game, capturing Xiaochen in one go. However, how could old eccentric Qiao have imagined that Xiaochen only said that on purpose? With his heavenly eye, he could see through the underworld river at any time. Before Xiao Chen's great desolate Aeon bloodline scattered, he was at his peak state. When he drew the god shadow bow, he struck old eccentric Qiao. This arrow, which could instantly kill a one-vein sovereign emperor, severely injured old eccentric Qiao's physical body and soul. The more horrifying thing was that old eccentric Qiao's injuries worsened, inflicting unbearable pain. If Xiao Chen were stronger, he might have been able to kill old eccentric Qiao. Rumble! The shock waves from the god shadow arrow shook the bottom of the underworld river. The underworld boat shook, looking like it would capsize at any moment. For a moment, all the cultivators on the ship panicked, feeling uneasy. That is the underworld god protector, old eccentric Qiao. To think that it is Xiao Chen. Could these three be the righteous Dao cultivators that the underworld god Hall recently placed on arrest warrants? However, why is old eccentric Qiao in such a sorry state? He is a four-vein sovereign emperor. What is the point of caring about this now? If these people really start fighting, the boat will definitely sink. At that time, we will all die. Inside the boat's hold, Xiao Chen's group felt the demonic might that surged over with old eccentric Qiao's words. Their bodies shook slightly, and they could not stand stably. The group's expressions immediately turned somewhat unsightly. Unexpectedly, old eccentric Qiao was still so mighty after being struck by the god shadow arrow. Xiao Chen clenched his teeth and said, "What a troublesome old man. I need to let him strike me again. Otherwise he will not be able to escape death." The difference was simply too great. With just one shout, old eccentric Qiao managed to make Xiao Chen's group stumble. Furthermore, old eccentric Qiao was severely injured. If he were at his peak, the result would be unimaginable. Fortunately, old eccentric Qiao coveted the medial-grade soul tools of Xiao Chen's group, and was overly confident in his illusion Dao. If old eccentric Qiao had faced Xiao Chen's group head-on from the start, he would not have stood a chance. However, Xiao Chen's group did not know that if they did not die in the battle above the underworld river, they would become famous. Furthermore, this old eccentric Qiao was a four-vein sovereign emperor, someone who had already surpassed three-vein sovereign emperor. The difference in strength was on a completely different level. If it were anyone else, they would be frightened to death. How could they have the courage to face old eccentric Qiao head-on? "I'll do it." Chu Chaoyan and Lin Feng spoke at the same time. Then they exchanged looks, and determination flashed in their eyes. Without hesitation, they soared into the air and charged out of the underworld boat, taking the initiative to charge at old eccentric Qiao. When in a predicament, one could either wait for death or save oneself. The only way to save oneself was to be brave. "You are seeking death." Old eccentric Qiao, who stood on top of the waves, showed a ferocious expression, making his face look even uglier, like a malicious spirit from hell. When old eccentric Qiao saw Chu Chaoyan and Lin Feng charging over, he snorted coldly. Then he dragged his injured body and threw a palm strike. Boom! This palm strike was very horrifying. Overwhelming demonic might filled the sky. Layers of demonic might layered on top of each other. A total of 4 layers layered over each other. It was bottomless, looking as horrifying as an abyss. Before Chu Chaoyan and Lin Feng could get close, the suppression made their qi and blood surge, making them feel extremely unbearable. Scram! When that palm strike landed, Chu Chaoyan and Lin Feng each vomited a mouthful of blood. As their bodies wobbled, they felt the suction from the underworld river. The situation immediately became extremely dangerous. Great desolate Aeon's rage. Charge! 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 Lin Feng appeared deranged. Black lines appeared on his face as he took out the Cheongqi Beast Ghost Pennant. Lin Feng clenched his teeth and charged forward with overwhelming rage. On the other side, a sword light burst out of Chu Chaoyan's body. It was like the stars existed forever, existing with the rivers, the sun, and the moon. Then Chu Chaoyan tore through the suction of the underworld river and charged forward proudly. Lin Feng and Chu Chaoyan were risking their lives to delay old eccentric Qiao for Xiao Chen. A formless pressure landed on Xiao Chen, who was in the underworld boat. Xiao Chen only had one chance. Could he hit? Chapter 2209. Xiao Chen had only one chance to shoot the arrow. If he missed, the three would have a chance to survive. If he missed, all three would die. Xiao Chen did not fear death. However, he did not like this feeling. He did not want to lose his friends' lives because of his mistake. If possible, Xiao Chen was even willing to sacrifice himself for his friends' chances of survival. However, due to their trust, Chu Chaoyan and Lin Feng placed their hopes on Xiao Chen, putting the greatest pressure on him. Old eccentric Qiao fought with Lin Feng and Chu Chaoyan above the underworld river. His aura fluctuated as his figure flickered, creating many afterimages. After suffering once, how could old eccentric Qiao let Xiao Chen shoot him again? Whenever he sensed something, he would immediately dodge. It was simply too difficult to lock down a four-veined sovereign emperor. Old eccentric Qiao's soul energy was stronger than Xiao Chen's, and his soul sense was very sharp. Old eccentric Qiao's divine energy cultivation went without saying. With a thought, he could send out vast sea-like divine energy with a wave of his hand. Even if old eccentric Qiao focused on illusions and not martial techniques, he could easily suppress Chu Chaoyan and Lin Feng with just divine energy. This was the so-called breaking technique with brute force. No matter how powerful one's martial techniques were, or how strong one's Dao domain was, old eccentric Qiao only needed one palm strike to easily break the peak strike that you put in so much effort. Chu Chaoyan and Lin Feng were fighting with their lives on the line. If not for the two being outstanding geniuses, and if not for old eccentric Qiao being severely injured, they would not even have the chance to fight with their lives on the line. Damn it! Xiao Chen cursed in his heart. I can't find him. 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 Xiao Chen continuously swung the god shadow bow in his hand, but he could not draw the bowstring. When facing the wary old eccentric Qiao, the other party sensed it the moment Xiao Chen used his soul energy. Before Xiao Chen even used his soul energy, old eccentric Qiao already sensed it with just one look, allowing him to react in advance. Xiao Chen had always been decisive in killing, never hesitating. However, at this moment he felt fatigued. The mountain-like pressure prevented him from firing the arrow. Beads of sweat fell from his forehead like raindrops, blurring his vision. However, he did not dare to wipe them off. Little by little, Xiao Chen's heart became restless. The invisible torture was testing Xiao Chen's state of mind. An inner demon quietly emerged. A voice echoed in his mind. You were afraid that if this arrow missed, it would kill Lin Feng and Chu Chaoyan. Because you are not a demon. Because you are weak. If you become a demon, you will be emotionless and loveless. There will be no worries in your heart. There will be no fear, worry or cowardice in your heart. If you become a demon, this arrow will definitely kill that underworld god protector. If you become a demon, you won't need to fear the underworld god protector. This world will be yours. Formless black demonic chi leaked out of Xiao Chen's body uncontrollably. It gave off a sinister light as it wriggled. Black devil chi converged bit by bit in his eyes, transforming into a sea of ink. It was pitch black and unfathomable as it devoured the last bit of spiritual light. This demonic chi inspired fear in the world. All the cultivators on the underworld boat trembled. The god shadow bow was infected by demonic chi, slowly turning cold. The cold aura startled even old eccentric Qiao, who was in the distance. Xiao Chen, fall into the demonic Dao. The inner demon sounded its final horn, wanting to corrode Xiao Chen's final thoughts and make him fall into the demonic Dao. Become a demon? No. The instant Xiao Chen said no in his heart, the spiritual light in his eyes exploded. The overwhelming demonic chi and the boundless ink sea all disappeared. What demon? I've always been me. You'd better obediently lie down for me. Xiao Chen snorted coldly in his heart. Then he looked at Chu Chaoyan and Lin Feng, who were fighting old eccentric Qiao above the underworld river. The two fought with their lives on the line, constantly on the verge of death. With every second that passed, they could die. However, the two fought with all their might every second, not giving up. Xiao Chen could not help but understand. While he was not afraid of death, Lin Feng and Chu Chaoyan were not people who feared death. It did not matter whether the arrow hit or not. Most importantly, there was once a bond that bound the three of them together above the underworld river. Unwilling to admit defeat, they fought with a four-veined sovereign emperor. Xiao Chen's left hand, which held the bow, no longer trembled. His heart was calm. This arrow is connected to my heart. Boom. However, just as Xiao Chen was about to fire this arrow, a black-clad figure suddenly appeared out of nowhere and smashed through old eccentric Qiao's demonic might. Suddenly, it appeared out of nowhere and directly smashed through old eccentric Qiao's demonic might. A hole appeared in the sky, where the 4 layers of demonic might spread. The moment that black figure appeared, the pressure on Chu Chaoyan and Lin Feng immediately decreased significantly. Bang! The 2 palms clashed, and old eccentric Qiao vomited a mouthful of blood as the black-clad figure knocked him back 5,000 kilometers. You are. This startled old eccentric Qiao. He seemed to recognize this person. However, just as he was about to say it, the black-clad figure pressed forward and attacked again. This forced old eccentric Qiao to swallow his words. He could only receive the attacks helplessly as he was continuously pushed back. Xiao Chen felt slightly stunned. Then he put away the god shadow bow and entered deep thought. Whoosh! Xiao Chen's figure flashed, and he arrived beside Lin Feng and Chu Chaoyan. The two were incredibly fatigued and covered in injuries. However, they were still spirited, their fighting spirit not diminished. This gave Xiao Chen some relief. Xiao Chen, who is that person? I find him somewhat familiar. Lin Feng said, finding this strange. To think that someone in the abyssal underworld helped them push back old eccentric Qiao. This was simply incredible. Lin Feng could vaguely sense who that figure was, but he could not be sure. That is someone from the Azura race's Luoho bloodline. I'll talk to you in detail later. The 3 left elegantly on the underworld river before the dumbfounded cultivators below, leaving behind phantoms. After landing on the riverbank, Xiao Chen said somewhat apologetically, Sorry, I made a mistake with that arrow earlier. Chu Chaoyan smiled and said, You are overthinking. Xiao Chen, there is no need to apologize. In reality, both Lin Feng and I could feel it. If not for your existence, making that old fellow fear you and keeping his guard up against you, we would not have lasted for so long. Lin Feng nodded. He could have killed us several times, but he gave up in the end. At first, I did not understand. Now I understand that you scared him. Haha. Old eccentric Qiao has dominated the abyssal underworld for his entire life. First, you broke the illusion Dao that he is most proud of. Then you scared him until he could not even kill 2 one-veined sovereign emperors. After this battle, he will definitely embarrass himself. Lin Feng laughed very carefreely. Xiao Chen was slightly stunned. It seemed like ever since he met Lin Feng, Xiao Chen had always felt this way. It seemed like Xiao Chen had never seen Lin Feng laugh before, much less laugh as happily as he did today. The god Shadow Bao did not fire that arrow. However, that arrow already appeared in Xiao Chen's heart. This allowed Xiao Chen to understand many things. There were some things that he could not give up. That was a bond and friendship that could not be obtained even with the entire world. Come, let's leave the abyssal underworld first. Right. Xiao Chen called out the demon blood vulture and quickly carried the 3 far away. After that, there were no more surprises, everything went smoothly. Xiao Chen briefly told Lin Feng and Chu Chaoyan about the deal he made with Luoho Wang in the final blood battlefield. The 2 felt enlightened and said that Luoho Wang was indeed a passionate person. At the very last moment, he actually got an older generation sovereign emperor of his race to save Xiao Chen. It was worth it for Xiao Chen to face 10-odd sovereign emperors for him back then, helping him fulfill his wish. As for what kind of pressure Luoho King would face after this, the 3 of them were well aware of it. Feeling helpless, they did not say anything. The underworld god temple would definitely not let Luoho Wang off. He was an Azura noble, so they would definitely not kill him. However, their punishment would definitely not be light. 2 days later, Xiao Chen's trio passed through the abyssal rift and returned to the central world. The long-awaited sun was rather dazzling, but it was also abnormally comfortable. His repressed emotions were swept away. Thinking back to everything that had happened in the netherworld, it had been full of twists and turns. It had been extremely dangerous, but fortunately, everyone had returned alive. Before he could be happy for too long, It was time to part again. Xiao Chun and Lin Feng wanted to return to the Heavenly Alliance, while Chu Chaoyan wanted to return to the Universe Origin sect. Naturally, the paths were different. Xiao Chun, if you need anything in the future, you can come to the Universe Origin sect to find me directly. If it's inconvenient for you to come, you can also send a message. Before parting, Chu Chaoyan revealed his signature smile and said softly. Xiao Chun nodded. You too. Goodbye. Chu Chaoyan looked at Xiao Chun and Lin Feng. Then he performed a cupped fist salute and left. Xiao Chun and Lin Feng only withdrew their gazes after Chu Chaoyan finally vanished from their sight. Let's go. It's time for us to turn in our mission. Lin Feng reluctantly returned the Qiongqi Beast Ghost Pennant to Xiao Chun as he spoke. Xiao Chun raised his hand and stopped Lin Feng. Take it first and make do with it. You can return it to me when you no longer need it. Oh, by the way, this is for you as well. Lin Feng looked at the item Xiao Chun gave him in his palm. This greatly startled him, rendering him somewhat speechless. That's not good, right? Xiao Chun smiled and said, who cares? It's useless anyway. Come, let's return to the Heavenly Alliance. Lin Feng looked at the item in his hand and shook his head. He thought to himself, I really can't figure out Xiao Chun's thoughts. Then he carefully put it away and quickly caught up to Xiao Chun. The two walked side by side under the blazing sun, gradually going far away. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.